Full Metal Storm, Battle of the Machines. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 270, A Small Gift. On the same night, Xing returned to the core headquarters. What's wrong? As soon as he entered the office, he saw Liang Jian, his confidant. Liang Jian took out his mobile phone and pressed it. A voice rang out from inside. Boss Luo, you are finally here. Boss Huang, what's the matter that makes you call me here so urgently? Then Liang Jian shook his mobile phone, and a video appeared on the big screen in the office. The image should have been taken from outside the window. What can be seen is, in a luxurious office in the window, Huang Yuanhang and Luo Xianyi, two conservative leaders, hugged each other lightly. Then Huang Yuanhang invited Luo Xianyi to take a seat and said, I originally wanted to give Boss Luo a generous gift, but I didn't expect it. It went wrong. No, I have to apologize to Boss Luo in person. This video was the day when Huang Yuanhang met Luo Xianyi and bluntly said that he was plotting to kidnap Wei Fenghe. In the video, Huang Yuanhang said, I originally planned to tie up Wei Fenghe and give it to Mr. Luo as a gift to celebrate your upcoming ascension to the throne of the city lord. Hearing this, Xing's eyes slightly closed. After watching the video, Xing immediately took out his mobile phone, sealed off the city gates and all exits, and the third squad will be dispatched immediately to arrest Huang Yuanhang. Then he put down the phone. Who sent the video? Liang Jian shook his head. It was an anonymous user. I have asked the technical department to try to track the delivery address, but there is no result for the time being. Xing rubbed his chin. At the beginning of the election, Luo Xianyi was exposed for participating in the illegal sale of giant parasites. Now it's Huang Yuanhang again. Could it be? Liang Jian raised his head, his eyes bright. Wu Shimo, Minister of Security? Xing frowned, but Huang Yuanhang's votes ranked third, so he can't threaten him. Even if he wants to do something, shouldn't he target me? Liang Jian smiled. Captain, you don't have any black history to dig up. Old Wu is not a fool and won't do such useless work. Xing said, it is precisely because he is not a fool that, if he wants to target me, he can make something out of nothing. At this time, Xing's mobile phone rang. A name appeared on the screen. Wu Shimo. He showed the name on the screen to Liang Jian, then pressed the speaker button to answer the call. Brother Xing. Wu Shimo's voice was loud. Brother gave you a small gift. Did you receive it? Xing glanced at Liang Jian. Then he said, Huang Yuanhang? Yes, that's him. Wu Shimo laughed dryly and said, last year, when our security department was investigating an illegal arms deal, we found the shadow of Yuanhang Group. Following this line, we found that Huang Yuanhang had funded several bases on the surface. He was secretly developing weapons. So our security department has been keeping an eye on him. As a result, we got some unexpected gains. Don't worry, we have closed the city gates and all the passages. Your core can take action, and our security department will be responsible for cleaning up for you. Xing snorted. Minister Wu is thoughtful. Okay, Wu Shimo said, then I won't delay your core work. Let's have tea together when we have time and talk again. The call ended. Liang Jian snorted. This old guy got the information early, but he waited until now to bring it out. His intentions are sinister. Xing said slowly, he wants to do me a favor, and the reason is the election of the city lord. Liang Jian said, what about us now? Xing said, catch Huang Yuanhang first. We were investigating and collected some evidence, but it was not sufficient. Now that we have this video, he can't run away. Liang Jian laughed. Okay, then I'll go and take a look. After Liang Jian left, the phone in front of Xing's case rang. He answered it. The guard of the course said, Captain, Luo Yan is here. A moment later, Luo Yan saw Xing. The latter looked him up and down, then stretched out his hand and pressed Luo Yan's shoulder. I've heard about your story. Secondary infection. Black Witch. It's not easy. Xing sighed slightly. Then he said in a deep voice, but the road you and I are walking on is not a smooth road. Even if it is full of thorns, what does it matter? Just step on it. Just a few words. Luo Yan seemed to be greatly encouraged. His eyes sparkled, and he nodded slightly. Then, he mentioned the 2 tasks of the Black Witch to Xing. This organization seems to be quite ambitious and plans to develop a base in each underground city. Xing sat down and said, for the sake of confidentiality, only the head of the corps knows about the Black Witch. Except the King Gaiankor, of course. I will try to cover this base for you, but there is not much I can do. Not much. More will arouse the suspicion of the Black Witch. As for recruiting team members, he pondered for a moment and said, let's talk about the task later. You just came back, and must be tired. Go back to school first. I will come to see you in a few days. Luo Yan nodded and said goodbye. He returned to the underground city in the evening. He had rented a warehouse at the Guangling branch of the AFA used car dealership, and purchased the butler service. After placing the RV in the small mecha, he changed his clothes, and came to see Xing. So at this time, he would not bother, and just go back to the 100 Battles Academy. After a night, the next day, he went to see Wei Fenghua. In Wei Fenghua's dormitory, Luo Yan held a cup with a tea that Wei Fenghua had just made. Tea is quite rare now. If Xing hadn't given me some, I, a poor teacher, probably wouldn't have been able to drink it. Wei Fenghua raised his glasses and coughed twice. Then he said with some concern, how is your health? He then laughed at himself. How can my health be better with a second infection? I really asked too much. Luo Yan took a sip of tea, put down the cup and said, if the red poison doesn't break out, I'm no different from usual. Wei Fenghua sighed lightly. Secondary infection can only use special relief agent to delay the onset of red poison, but you still have to practice to Tongsuan realm as soon as possible to expel the red poison. You are now in the intermediate realm. To enter Tongsuan, even if it consumes a lot of resources, it will take at least 3 years. He didn't say anything else. The implication was that Luo Yan didn't have enough time. After all, even with the super grade relief agent, it is still questionable whether Luo Yan can survive for 3 years. Wei Fenghua changed the subject. It has been confirmed that the culprit who kidnapped me in the forbidden area that day was Huang Yuanhang. Luo Yan looked up. Wei Fenghua said, last night, Wu Shima gave Xing a big gift, which was a video recording of the meeting between Huang Yuanhang and Luo Xian'ie. In it, Huang Yuanhang himself revealed that he planned the kidnapping of me. Luo Yan asked with concern, so now, has he been caught? Chapter 271, A Tiger in the Eyes. Not yet. Wei Fenghua shook his head gently. Even if Wu Shimo had already closed all exits in the name of the security department before sending the gift. However, Huang Yuanhang is not an easy person to deal with. Now we can only be sure that Huang Yuanhang is still in the city, and the Corps and the security department have conducted a city-wide search. It's hard to catch a rat hiding in the sewer. Wei Fenghua smiled. It's not easy, not to mention that this is a big rat. There must be many rats working for him. Luo Yan thought about it, stood up and said, I'll go out. Wei Fenghua glanced at him, didn't ask him where he was going, just said, be careful. Luo Yan smiled rarely, thinking of what Xing said last night. Even if it's a tough road, at this moment, there seemed to be a tiger in the eyes of the young man. Leave the school. Luo Yan took out his mobile phone and called Guan Qi. The call was answered quickly. Luo Yan said simply, I want Bei Tao's location. Guan Qi did not hesitate. Current address, 30,000. Follow closely, 50,000. Do you need us to catch him for you? 1 million, and you can see Bei Tao at night. Luo Yan secretly said professional in his heart, but still said, follow closely, I'll pay now. Okay, still the previous account. Guan Qi said, and hung up the phone. Luo Yan transferred 50,000 from his public account to the account designated by Guan Qi. Not long after, he received an address. A large dragonfish stall. Guangling Farmers Market. A man in a white suit avoided the dirty water mixed with fish blood on the ground with disgust. A middle-aged man in his 50s hurriedly moved a table over, put a stove and a pot on it, and then smiled. Brother Tao, is this the old rule? Bei Tao nodded, pulled a chair over and sat down. Hurry up. Okay, wait a moment. A moment later, the cut and cleaned fish meat was placed in a circle with chili peppers in the middle. Plate after plate was brought up and placed next to the stove. Then a few dishes of sauces, the most common soy sauce with a little mustard, were placed in front of Beitao. Beitao waved his hand, and the middle-aged man left in a hurry. A man in a black suit opened the pot on the stove for Beitao, and the soup inside was just boiling. Beitao picked up a piece of fish fillet and put it in the soup. After 10 seconds, he picked it up, dipped it in soy sauce, and ate it with a puff of air. He likes to eat fish. He can't live without fish. Before the natural disaster, he had to eat a fresh fish every morning to feel refreshed. Now, being able to eat a fresh fish a week is considered good. Now living in the underground city, chickens, ducks, and geese, which were the most common in the past, are now special supplies. Those who can do business in the farmer's market are all capable people. Beitao is more capable than them, so he can come to the fish stall early in the morning to eat freshly slaughtered live fish. When he was eating fish, his men scattered and were very domineering and did not let anyone get close. Even those who can come to the farmer's market to buy vegetables are not ordinary people. Soon, a plate of fish fillets was eaten up. When Beitao just put down his chopsticks to eat the second plate of fish fillets, there was a sudden scream, and then someone fell at his feet. Beitao raised his foot to press it down. It was his men. "What are you doing?" He looked up and saw 7 or 8 of his men gathered together outside the fish stall, shouting and cursing, as if chasing someone away. Then, a dark blue sword light flashed in the crowd, splashing blood a foot away. Then Beitao's men screamed or shouted, and reached into the cups, and pulled out guns to fight the enemy. Sword lights flashed one after another, continuously. Some of those in black suits had their wrists broken off, and some had their flesh and bones separated from fingers to shoulders. In a blink of an eye, some died, some were injured. There were wails everywhere. Beitao saw then. Someone was walking behind his fallen subordinate. His black hair was slightly messy, and his red eyes were burning like flames. His straight nose, tightly pursed lips, slightly thin lines, and sharp determination. Beitao's chopsticks fell on the table. Hiss. This was the sound of him inhaling. He stood up unconsciously. His mind was in a mess. Then he shouted, "What do you want to do, Luo Yan?" After getting Beitao's location from Guanqi, Luo Yan rushed over. Seeing Beitao there, he felt that his money was not wasted. The news of Xing Feng was indeed well informed, but it was expensive. Apart from being expensive, there was no other disadvantage. Luo Yan walked forward slowly, and blood beads rolled on the long sword-splitting star, dripping onto the ground, and mixing with the dirty water. "Where is Huang Yuanhang?" Luo Yan said slowly, and at the same time, opened the eye of true suchness to peek into Beitao's thoughts. "How do I know where he is? I don't know the boss of Yuanhang Group." Beitao shouted, and then realized that he had lost his composure. He was actually scared like this by a student. Luo Yan looked at the voice information that kept popping up above Beitao's head. At this moment, Beitao's mind was very confused. How did this kid know that I knew Boss Huang? What a waste of the fish I just killed. What should I do now? Should I run away? Who did Boss Huang offend? The security department and the Corps came to me for questioning last night. I can't go to see Xiaoli tonight. A mess of thoughts. Luo Yan glanced at it. He didn't say anything. Suddenly, the splitting star was like lightning, stabbing into Beitao's shoulder. Beitao immediately gasped, and then his expression twisted, and then he cursed. "Fuck." The voice rang. Luo Yan stabbed him in the thigh again, avoiding the artery, and stabbing in a place with flesh, but few blood vessels. "It won't kill him, but it hurts. What the hell are you doing? Are you crazy?" Beitao yelled again. Luo Yan stabbed again. "Stop. Stop." Blood splattered out in strands, landing on the dirty ground of the fish stall, mixed with the fish water and sewage. The owner of the fish stall was dumbfounded. "This is Beitao. Now he is being slaughtered like the fish in his stall. I told you, can't I tell you everything?" Beitao has turned into a bloody man. Huang Yuan hangers in building 3. Hangzhou Street, lane 9, building 3, with his old lover. Luo Yan stopped at this point. He looked at Beitao's mental information. Then he knocked him unconscious with a palm to prevent him from tipping off. If this was on the surface, it wouldn't be so troublesome. But in the underground city, and in broad daylight, with the fish stall owner watching nearby, it was not convenient to silence him. He couldn't just kill everyone in the market. He was just cruel, not a murderer. After dealing with Beitao, Luo Yang called Dizeng, Huang Yuan hangars in building 3, lane 9, Hangzhou Street. Dizeng didn't ask where he got the information from, but said, "Okay, I'll take action immediately." He hung up the phone. Luo Yan looked at the fish stall owner and walked over with his sword. "Don't come over." The boss was so scared that he sat down on the ground. However, the young man picked up the card machine on his counter, took out an ID card and swiped it. 5,000 work points have been credited to my personal account. Thank you for your patronage. The small speaker behind the counter sounded. The boss didn't react for a while. The young man looked at him again, then whispered, "Excuse me." Then he left. Chapter 272, Transfer Student. When he returned to school, Luo Yan suddenly found that there were many people at the school gate. Students were walking into the academy one after another. He suddenly remembered that today was the day to return to school. Many students were sent by their parents, and they took out large and small bags of luggage from the trunk of the car, and then they found ways to pull them into the academy. When the students and parents were busy, they also saw Luo Yan. Compared with them, Luo Yan did not have any luggage in his hands. He only carried a sword, and his body was stained with Beitao's blood. He was murderous. Seeing this scene, many people took a breath. An uncle pulled his daughter's sleeve. "Is this a student from your academy?" The female student nodded slightly, her pretty face pale. "Does your academy study mechs or slashing people?" This classmate just came back from slashing people early in the morning. Such voices. One by one, they rang around. Luo Yan walked towards the gate calmly. He didn't care what people said, or how they looked at him. "Old Luo." At this time, a familiar voice rang. "Zengshan." Luo Yan stopped walking, turned around with his sword in hand, and saw his classmate Zengshan running over with a backpack on his back. As he approached and saw the blood on Luo Yan's body, Zengshan whispered, "Oh my god, where have you been?" "The fish stall." Luo Yan answered simply. Zengshan was stunned. "Did you go to kill fish? Why do you go to the fish stall to kill fish?" Luo Yan did not respond to these two questions. Zengshan was used to it and chatted with Luo Yan casually. "Look, how long is that girl's legs?" This classmate is not bad either, with big breasts. I like big breasts. "What about you?" "Hey, this classmate is really unique. Her hair is dyed pink." "Pink hair color? Question mark?" Luo Yan stopped. "Where?" Zengshan pointed to the crowd. "There." "Hey, it's gone." It was just there. He then looked at Luo Yan. "Old Luo, do you like pink hair? Are you obsessed with the second dimension?" Luo Yan ignored him. Back to the dormitory. Luo Yan took a shower, changed his clothes, and went out. As soon as he went out, then a voice of shouting and screaming was heard. "Student Luo, you are finally back. I missed you so much." Yang Lixi ran over with his arms open, ready to pounce on Luo Yan. Luo Yan glanced at his pale neck. Yang Lixi immediately felt a trace of murderous intent. He stopped wisely. "Haha, it's good that you are back. I have a lot of things to discuss with you. Let's go. Let's talk while we walk." The two walked out of the dormitory building. Yang Lixi said, "Do you remember Li Chunlei, the bank manager? Didn't he get poisoned to death? Then I asked someone to do an autopsy on that matter. Guess what? It turns out that the person in charge is from the Ministry of Security, named Zhang Chunqiu." Luo Yan glanced at him. "Did you find out?" Yang Lixi shook his head. "I wish I had that ability. It wasn't me. It was revealed by the internal investigation of the Ministry of Security. Of course, it was not made public, so my father was informed." Luo Yan nodded. Yang Lixi said, "Also, the Huang family is finished. Although I don't know the reason, last night, the Corps and the security department were looking for old Huang." Luo Yan said HMM. Yang Lixi wondered, "Why don't you look surprised at all?" "Director when he told me." Luo Yan said casually. Yang Lixi said oh. Then he whispered, "How are you doing in Qingyang? I mean, is Liu okay? For example, which young talent she likes?" Luo Yan gently tapped the scabbard of splitting star. There was a ding sound. Yang Lixi shrank his neck. Knowing that Luo Yan was impatient, he cleverly laughed and said, "I'm just asking casually. Well, I have something to do, and I'll leave first. Let's meet again at another time." After that, he ran away. As soon as he left, Luo Yan finally had peace of mind. As he walked, he came to the vicinity of the logistics department. From afar, I saw a man wearing a hat and slippers, practicing Teikai in the sun. Jiuying, the head of the pharmacy department. Seeing Luo Yan, he pressed his hat and walked over with a smile. "Student Luo, when did you come back?" Luo Yan thought of his spark agent, stopped and said, "Last night." Jiuying took out a paper fan and waved it, then moved closer to Luo Yan, using the fan to cover half of their faces. He spoke like a thief. "I heard that you were infected with the red poison for the second time in the forbidden area. I happen to be researching this topic. Would you like to be my assistant? Maybe I can develop an antidote for the second infection." Luo Yan looked at him in surprise. Jiuying's information was a bit too well informed. The latter raised his head, covered his face with a fan, and laughed like a hen. "Kang He's class teacher, my ex-girlfriend, you know it." He looked very proud. Then he said sadly, "It's a pity that she and I are not the same kind of people, alas." Patting Luo Yan on the shoulder, Jiuying turned and left, sighing as he walked. There is a swing inside the wall and a road outside the wall. There are pedestrians outside the wall, and the beauty inside the wall is laughing. The laughter gradually fades, and the sound gradually becomes quieter. Love is annoying by the heartless. In the classroom, when Luo Yan came in, the classmates in the class were basically all there. He walked in with a sword, came to a table in the corner, and slapped the splitting star on the table. The students looked sideways and subconsciously stayed away from Luo Yan. Footsteps sounded. Jiuying walked in. He looked around with a smile. "Classmates, good morning. How was your vacation?" After a few opening remarks, Jiuying coughed dryly and said, "This semester, there will be one more student in our class. Transfer student. Everyone welcomes classmate Bei." "Bei?" Luo Yan was stunned. He looked at the door. Amid applause, a figure walked in the sunlight outside the door. The girl with pink hair tied into two ponytails, wearing an eye mask, and with a pretty face, but a stiff smile, came to Jiuying's side. "Hello everyone. I'm Bei. From Kanghi College. Starting today, I'm joining Beizhen College as a freshman. Please take care of me." Bei's eyes drifted to the ceiling from time to time, as if reciting a book, and he finished the above words fluently. Jiuying smiled and pointed to the empty seat next to Luo Yan. "You sit there." "Okay." Bei looked at Luo Yan, raised her hand and waved, then smiled shyly. "Student Luo." Luo Yan nodded slightly. Bei pointed to the empty seat next to him. "Can I sit here?" Luo Yan put the splitting star against the wall. Bei sat down and smiled brightly at Luo Yan. This smile was not stiff at all. It was very natural and beautiful. The others were stunned. Zheng Shan opened his mouth even wider and then slapped his thigh. "I didn't expect that Luo is really a fan of the second dimension. So he likes this. PS. 38.5 degrees, dizzy, body aches. I can only update one chapter, and I haven't checked for errors. Please forgive me." Chapter 273 White Dragon Upgrade, Divine Guard begins. The get out of class is over. Luo Yan stood in the corridor and answered a phone call. It was from Dizeng. Huang Yuanhang has been arrested and is now being taken back to the core headquarters with his son. Next, he will be investigated together with the security department. This incident will inevitably bring a series of changes to Guangling City. Huang Yuanhang's business and power will be gradually divided up. Of course, this has nothing to do with Luo Yan. After the call, Luo Yan put down his phone and saw Wei Fenghua. Dizeng called. The director of the teaching department covered his mouth with a handkerchief and coughed twice. Luo Yan nodded. The two chatted as they walked. Huang Yuanhang has been caught. Luo Yan said concisely. Wei Fenghua nodded slightly and then said, "In this way, Dizeng will have fewer troubles." Luo Yan couldn't help but glance at him. Dizeng's troubles? Would a man like that also have troubles? Wen Fenghua guessed what he was thinking and laughed. He is just an ordinary person. Is it strange to have troubles? Let's not talk about the distant past. Let's talk about the current city lord election. Luo Xianai's scandal broke out at the beginning of the election, and now the votes have not been pulled in. Huang Yuanhang fell again. The position of city lord is nothing more than him and security minister Wu Shimo. Not long ago, Wu Shimo had a long talk with Di Zeng. Then, Wen Fenghua said this is that and briefly recounted what happened when Wu Shimo met Di Zeng that night. Wu Shimo's words touched Di Zeng's heart. In fact, if the conservatives had not been opposed to surface exploration, with Di Zeng's temperament, he would never participate in the election of the city lord. He would rather go to the surface and fight the giant beasts than deal with certain people in the city. Besides, Wu Shimo is right. Di Zeng is good at leading troops, and leading the entire corps is no problem. But when it comes to city lord and city management, he is stretched to the limit. He is not that material. Luo Yang nodded slightly to show his approval. Wen Fenghua sighed lightly, although Wu Shimo told him that, if Di Zeng is willing to support him to be the city lord, he will fully support the corps to carry out surface activities. But, people's hearts are separated from their stomachs. Di Zeng is not sure whether Wu Shimo really has such an idea in his heart, so he is still undecided until now. Luo Yan's eyes moved slightly when he heard it. It is true that people's hearts are separated from their stomachs, but in his case, as long as he meets Wu Shimo in person, he can find out what's in his heart and see what he thinks. At this time, Wen Fenghua changed the topic and said, by the way, did you see the transfer student from Kang College this morning? Yes. Luo Yan said softly. Did Bei transfer to Basin College because of me? Wen Fenghua nodded slightly. Just after you left, this girl went to Duanhong and asked to transfer to our college. She knew that you were secondarily infected and was worried that you would have an attack of the red poison, but had no medicine with you. Duanhong agreed considering that you saved the entire Qingyang city. I have seen this girl. Although her mental state is not very stable, she is a good person in general. At present, her treatment is being provided by our school. In addition, her mecha has also been transported to the corps, and she is also registered in the corps. Like you, she is a reserve pilot. When you are free in the next 2 days, take her to the corps. By the way, take a look at your mecha. White Dragon is now at the Divine Guard level. Although it is only at the entry level, the change is still quite big. You should also find time to familiarize yourself with the functions so that there will be no mistakes in the battle. Luo Yan nodded. The next day, Guangling Corps headquarters. The door of a school bus opened. Luo Yan and Bei got off the bus, entered the corps, and came to the mecha parking area. I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional. Bei, who was registered in the corps, was also assigned to Luo Yan's team. Therefore, the two mechs 8 gates and White Dragon were parked together. Seeing the 8 gates again, Luo Yan saw at a glance that this mecha had been upgraded and had obvious changes. The overall mecha was like a white dog, but there were more golden auspicious cloud patterns on the body, and the outer layer of the engine on the chest had an extra layer of pearl-like outer cover. It looked like a jade bead was embedded in the chest of the 8 gates. In addition, the head of the 8 gates had many ears, which looked a bit weird. Seeing Luo Yan's eyes fall on the ears of his mecha, Bei laughed and said, there are many antennas hidden inside those things, which will help me control the weird more stably. Luo Yan nodded. Bei's situation is special. Whether it is herself or the mecha, her core tactics are based on weirdness, and everything is for the service of weirdness. Even the upgrade of the mecha is also considered how to maximize the use of weirdness. Bei's divine ability controlling the weird belongs to the mysterious system. Bang Ji once talked about it in class. Controlling the weird should be that Bei has a connection with a certain space and uses her own energy and will to open a channel. Thus, the weirdness in that space is released, enters reality, and is controlled. At present, Bei can only use 8 weirdnesses, and the weirdness is released or not complete. But in time, as her realm is improved, and her Yuanli is strengthened, not only will the weirdnesses be complete, but it is also likely to release other, more weirdnesses. Therefore, Bei does not need to learn combat skills and mysterious arts. As long as she can control the weirdnesses, she will have the greatest combat power. Look. At this time, Bei pointed to a berth next to her. Student Luo Yan, your white dragon has changed a lot. Luo Yan looked. Near the 8 gates, stood a silver white figure. White dragon. The previous mecha was almost entirely silver white. But now, in addition to the main color of white dragon, it has 2 more colors, black and golden. The most obvious change is that white dragon has a large shield with a silver edge and a black background. On the shield, there are 2 Chinese characters written in small seal scriptation. In addition, white dragon has added 8 main and auxiliary jets at the back, and in multiple positions. It can provide the mecha with the ability to move quickly, and to take off, and move in the air for a short time. In this way, the tactics of white dragon will become more diverse, and it does not have to stare blankly on the ground when encountering flying beasts. Of course, if Luo Yan wants to use it proficiently, he still has to spend some time practicing. In addition, white dragon replaced a long sword. The previous Pyo-jun was burned and melted in the Battle of Chaos, and could not be repaired. Now this long sword is called Fian, which is made of some kind of material from a giant beast. It is sharp and hard, but the weight is only half of Pyo-jun. It is of excellent quality, and is also a heavy weapon. Chapter 274, The Young Are to be Feared. In addition to the changes brought by the appearance, large shield and long sword, the super core matrix of white dragon has also been replaced, and a new set of matrices has been used again. The core of this matrix is Teisu, which has obtained the regeneration characteristic of the big meatball. With the Tsui outer armor used by white dragon, now as long as the damage to the outer armor of white dragon is not too serious, it can rely on the regeneration of the super core matrix to repair itself. The super core matrix also has an emergency feature, super speed regeneration. It can repair the outer armor in a short time, but after use, a corresponding cooling period will appear depending on the degree of damage to the outer armor. The time ranges from 1 day to several days. Tsui armor, super speed regeneration. With these two, as long as Beilong is not killed instantly, he can fight and escape. Next, Luo Yan took the girl to the team lounge. The lounge of the 4th team of the 3rd shift. Pushing open the door, Luo Yan was a little dazed, as if he saw a short-haired woman changing clothes at the closet. However, that woman had died in the Battle of Sangmentia. In the deserted lounge, there were only Dugu Changsun and Kang Shun. The former took off his shirt and was doing push-ups. The latter huddled on a bench, leaning against the wall to read a book, holding an apple in his hand, taking a bite from time to time. They heard the door open. Both looked over. The difference was that after Dugu Changsun took a look, the man with long silver hair continued to exercise. Kang Shun jumped up and laughed. "Zio Luo, you are here." Then he looked at the girl next to Luo Yan. "This must be Bei, classmate Bei, right?" Bei, with pink hair tied into 2 ponytails, nodded. "Hello everyone, I'm the transfer student Bei, you can call me Zio Bei." Hehehe. It seemed that the superiors had already told Bei's situation, so Kang Shun seemed to have not seen the girl's strange smile at the moment. He invited them into the house. "Great, you're here, and we're in a good mood. Especially with the little girl, our team can finally get rid of the situation of lonely Yang can't grow." Kang Shun opened the cabinet and took out 2 apples. "Here, they're delicious." "Thank you." Bei took it, wiped it, and took a bite. "Delicious, sour and sweet." Seeing that she liked it, Kang Shun also laughed happily. Luo Yan also took a bite of the apple, and then asked, "Where is the captain? Where else can he go?" "The toilet." As soon as Kang Shun finished speaking, he stood up straight and saluted. "Captain." Luo Yan looked at the door. Pale face, thin figure. Yan Wenbo, whose eye circles seemed to be Docker, pulled up his pants. "Little Luo is here. How was your summer vacation?" "It looks like it should be good. The mechs have been upgraded, and the entry-level divine guards, TSK, the young are formidable." As soon as the captain finished speaking, suddenly, the alarm sounded. Then the broadcast sounded in the lounge. "Alarm. Alarm. Space shockwave energy has been detected above our city, and it is about to reach the critical point. Yambu space will open in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 Yambu space starts." The giant beast is about to be launched. At the same time, next to the door of the 4th team's lounge, a small screen lit up with a red light and the word attack appeared. Yan Wenbo's expression became serious and he shouted, "All members of the 4th team, attack. Emergency attack in the skylight." Luo Yan sat in the cab of the White Dragon, and the light in the attack skylight quickly passed through the panoramic window. A moment later, the attack cabin arrived on the ground. After a violent vibration, the sound of the hydraulic machine came, and the door opened. Luo Yan immediately asked White Dragon to raise the big shield, Taishan, to protect the front, and with the other hand holding the Shenwei rifle, he walked out of the hatch carefully. As soon as he walked out of the hatch, he heard an explosion and saw the fire. In the distance, there were already mechs fighting with the giant beasts launched by the Yambu space. In the flickering light and shadow, the figures of the mecha and the giant beast were illusory. Luo Yan looked up at the sky. In the sky, the dark cracks like branches had not yet closed, and in that black space, another giant beast was thrown down. Boom. A group of black shadows fell from the sky, hitting the ground, and raised a wave of earth. The water in the lake was shaken and ripples appeared. Luo Yan looked. In the falling earth waves and dust, a strange giant beast appeared. Its upper body was like a human with armor, one hand holding a shield, and the other holding a gun. The lower body was like a big spider, and its sharp legs like blades kept poking the ground, making gaps. Red energy spectrum detected, now starting to match the archive. The synthesized sound of the computer sounded in the giant beast radar. Point matching is completed, and the giant beast that has been released has been confirmed to be a spider ghost. Level, upper level 2. Type, intermediate. Features, poisonous silk, spear throwing, sprinting, soul fire. Weakness is unknown. At this time, Luo Yan looked out through the panoramic window. The area around the spider ghost suddenly became dark, and then the light in the nearby space gradually became dim and heavy. They spread rapidly, covering the space of hundreds of square meters around the giant beast. The anti-membrane is deployed. Prepare for battle. Yan Wenbo's voice sounded in the team channel. Luo Yan, Dubu Changxin, we form a triangle formation, and are responsible for close combat. Kangshan, Bei, use your mystical arts and abilities to support and assist. Just as this side finished speaking, over there, under the skull-like mask of the spider ghost, 2 dark flames appeared and burned. Then the giant beast turned around and ran. It had the characteristics of running fast, and its sharp legs like blades moved like flying. But in just a moment, it had already run away. There was a silence in the team channel. Yan Wenbo coughed and said, "This is not surprising. The upper level behemoths are all intelligent. It should have judged that our strength is stronger. Don't worry about the behemoth that ran away, as long as it is not a threat to the underground city." Just as he said that, the computer prompted a new behemoth to be deployed. I saw a black mass hanging down from the black crack in the sky that looked like a branch, and then fell into the lake. Bang! The behemoth fell into the lake, hitting the lake surface and causing streams of water to explode. The lake water rolled onto the shore, washed the ground, and passed under the mecha's feet. Luo Yan looked over. It turned out to be a spinning turtle. At that time in the Misty Canyon, they, the students, had watched the battle between the core and the spinning turtle. At this time, the spinning turtle in the lake suddenly plunged into the lake. The behemoth radar showed that the spinning turtle was diving and heading towards the direction of the underground city. "Stop it." Yan Wenbo's voice rang out, and the mecha embroidered tiger ran towards the lake, looking like it was going to jump into the lake for a water battle. At this moment, 2 huge arms reached down from the sky. These 2 arms were pitch black, covered with strange blue patterns, and their long claws were burning with blue flames. They reached into the lake, caught the spiral turtle, dragged it out, and then threw it into the air, and threw it towards the lake shore. Bei, Yugi. Chapter 275 Side Selection. God knows how strong Bei's weird hands are. Anyway, when the turtle was thrown by it, the giant beast immediately spun like a coin, and the turtle fell to the ground when it was dizzy. Even so, the turtle still slid across the ground under the action of inertia, crushing a group of trees before stopping. The giant beast shook its head and couldn't get up for a while, but at this time, a whistle sounded over the woods. Then a ballistic missile fell from the sky. The turtle finally regained consciousness at the last moment, and with a whoosh, its head retracted into its shell. Then the missile exploded, and with a loud bang, a ball of orange-yellow fire expanded and rose, spreading circles of shock waves, blowing the surrounding trees down like wheat. The missile came from the Hyperion heavy mortar on the White Dragon. After a successful attack, Luo Yan controlled the mecha to raise the shield and move forward. A puff of green smoke suddenly spurted out from the flames. Turtle. Poison miasma. Just as it was about to spray the White Dragon, an invisible barrier suddenly appeared in front of the mecha. Luo Yan looked back and saw Kang Shun's mecha judge changing his hand seals. After raising the empty wall, Kang Shun formed another hand seal, and suddenly chains of energy appeared in the air, wrapping around the head and limbs of the spiral turtle and fixing it. At the same time, Dubu Changxin's mecha Fidian held the silver spear dragon Gallbladder. It rushed towards the spiral turtle quickly. Fidian still had the shape of an ancient warrior, but there were some changes, the most obvious of which was the gold devouring beast armor on both arms. Obviously, this mecha had been upgraded. In a flash, Fidian rushed to the side of the spiral turtle. The silver spear dragon Gallbladder swung vigorously, pressing out an arc, and the spearhead was like a dragon breaking through the stream, with a clanging sound that lasted for a long time. The whole spear turned into a blurred light and shadow, picking the head of the spiral turtle, and the big head of the giant beast was like a watermelon smashed by a stick. It shattered with a bang, and the flesh and blood rushed into the air along with the gun's force. Guided by the invisible energy, a dragon head was vaguely outlined. Combat skill, dragon raising its head. The giant beast was killed with one shot, and the light of the engines and energy nodes on Fidian's body began to dim. The mecha turned around, returned with a gun, and passed by Beilang. Luo Yan smiled in the cab. He did not respond to Dugu Changxin's implicit provocation. As the Yanfu space in the air disappeared, no new giant beasts were deployed, and the dungeon survived another crisis. Asterisk 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 blues bar. Another drink. Yan Wenbo shouted loudly, and patted the female bartender's hips, causing Kang Shun to cough repeatedly. Why shouldn't we relax and celebrate after winning the battle? Don't you think so, Zio Luo? Luo Yan sat on the side, and there was juice in front of him and Bei. He didn't drink, and Bei didn't like beer. Luo Yan looked at Yan Wenbo's dark circles around his eyes, worried that the captain would drink and send him away. Yan Wenbo looked back at Luo Yan. Don't worry, don't look at me like this, I'm in good health. I just look weaker than you young people, but in fact, I'm stronger than you. If you don't believe me, ask my women. They have to cry and beg me to let them go every night. Right, Ahang. He looked at the female bartender. Ahang spat. Bullshit. Every time he pesters me for a long time, but in the end it only takes 1 minute. If I hadn't begged him to get the job done quickly, he would probably have pestered me all night. Ha ha ha. The nearby mecha masters laughed wildly. Yan Wenbo's pale face turned red, but he still said stubbornly, but you still begged me, didn't you? This is not a slap in the face. It's not. The mecha masters started to make a noise. Luo Yan's indifferent face also showed a hint of smile. He looked around again. Suddenly his eyes lit up. Some ideas came to his mind. A few nights later, Luo Yan, wearing a cape, carrying Huan Lang on his back, and pulling his hood to cover half of his face, walked in the night market covered with dust and stains. This place is not far from Zengshan's home. On the narrow and rough streets, people walked with their heads down, hurriedly passing through the various thick smoke from the hot pot restaurants and barbecue stalls. In the cold and dark alleys, red skirts and white legs can be seen from time to time, and soft and charming smiles can be heard. When Luo Yan stopped, he was standing in front of a shabby shop located in the alley, but not too deep into the alley, only 3 or 4 meters. This is a record store, with dim lights, a pile of dusty speakers, and various records randomly placed on the shelves. An old-fashioned record player from the grandfather's generation was playing Zhu Xiaofeng's songs. In the song, that was separated by more than half a century, an old man was drowsy behind the counter. Outside the shop, there was a piece of paper with 4 big words "Prosperous Shop Transfer" written on it. At this time, footsteps sounded. Luo Yan looked back. Wen Zhao, Wei Junai and several members of Team 7 appeared in the dim light in front of the audiovisual store. Captain, Wen Zhao said with a smile, this is the small store I told you about. Take a look and see if it meets the requirements. A few days ago, Luo Yan was inspired to start a bar business to conceal his identity and manage the power of Team 7 of Zhu and Ming. So after Wen Zhao and others arrived in Guangling one after another, they were asked to find a suitable store in this no man's land. Luo Yan nodded and walked in. Wen Zhao followed, and the others, led by Wei Junai, walked out of the darkness around. Walking into the store, Luo Yan found that this audiovisual store was much larger than he had imagined. It was deep and wide, and after being renovated, it was just right to open a small bar. And it was located in the alley, so it wouldn't be too conspicuous. So he nodded. He indicated that Wen Zhao could go and negotiate the price with the owner. Wen Zhao understood, walked to the counter, clenched his fist, and coughed a few times. The old man behind the counter opened his eyes blankly and said intermittently, "What do you want to order?" Wen Zhao smiled. "Old man, are you going to transfer this store?" The old man was hard of hearing, stretched his ears and said loudly, "What did you say?" Wen Zhao had no choice but to shout. "I said, are you going to transfer this store?" As soon as he finished speaking, someone outside the door shouted, "Transfer what? We Blackfinger want this store. You two, get out of here. Get as far away as you can." Luo Yan turned back and glanced at him indifferently. 7 or 8 men came in from outside, and the middle finger of each of them was dyed black. It was a no man's land. There were all kinds of people, and many gangs. Luo Yan had expected this early on. It was not surprising to see the so-called Blackfinger. He turned around and picked up a record and started to watch it. Among those men, the leader narrowed his eyes and stretched out his hand to grab Luo Yan's shoulder. "Brother, you are a bit rude. Didn't your mother teach you to look at the other person when they are talking?" Before he finished speaking, a vermilion floated in front of his eyes. Then an arm fell to the ground. Wen Zhao came to the side without knowing when, with his hands in his wide sleeves, holding a bloody short knife in his hand. The fake Taoist priest smiled. "Sorry, my husband doesn't like to contact strangers. Tell me what you want to say. P.S. My fever has subsided today, and I'm in good spirits. I don't have a cough or sore throat. It's just that my back muscles are sore, and I feel a little weak. Fortunately, I don't need to use much force to type on the keyboard. This thing is really contagious. One person in my family falls down every day. Fortunately, the fever subsides after lying down for a day and they are basically recovered. Everyone should be careful. Don't exercise or anything after you recover. Rest and recuperate more." Chapter 276. The true person does not reveal his face. My hand. My hand. In the shabby audiovisual store, the man screamed, and several men with black and middle fingers bandaged him urgently. He was in so much pain that beads of sweat the size of soybeans appeared on his head, but he still shouted, "You are dead. You are dead. Why don't you ask? We, the Blackfingers, are the men of Flower Shirt Laikai. Today you cut off my hands. Tomorrow I will use your heads as stools to sit on." Luo Yan frowned. "Shut up." Wen Zhao immediately smiled and walked forward with his hands clasped together. Luo Yan reminded him, "Don't dirty the floor." "Okay." Wen Zhao responded happily and formed a hand seal with his hands clasped in his sleeves. Several energy chains pulled the two Blackfingers men. Wen Zhao finally stretched his hands out of his sleeves, held the short blade upside down, and stabbed it into the shoulders of the Blackfingers leader, stuck his collarbone, and then dragged him away with a smile. The man cursed in pain. His men wanted to organize a rescue, but suddenly they all froze. Behind one of them, Wei Junai, who had only one arm left, showed half of his face. "Don't shout, don't scream. Come out and talk." Suddenly, more than a dozen people in the audiovisual store left, and the figure shrank into the shadows of the alley, and soon there was no sound. If it weren't for the severed hand on the ground and the bloodstains nearby. Otherwise, the store would look the same as before. Luo Yan walked to the front of the counter and looked at the old man who seemed to have fallen asleep again. He said softly, "Are you selling this store for 50,000? The old man suddenly opened his eyes and said repeatedly, "Sell, sell, Sell. Asterisk 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 2 days later. In the afternoon. When Luo Yan walked into the training hall, he saw Zeng. He was a little surprised. It was a city lord election, and Zeng actually had time to come to school. Today, I will teach you the third method of opening the soul wheel. Opening the soul wheel. Zeng raised the corner of his mouth slightly. There are 4 other methods of this secret method of opening the soul wheel. Those 4 methods are more useful and powerful. If you have a chance in the future, you can exchange it from the giant beast strategic house and continue to learn. Luo Yan remembered that he still had contribution points at the strategic house that had not been used, so he nodded. Zeng's expression became serious, and he began to explain, Kaling Lun will make your muscles, tendons, and bones more flexible. The senses become more sensitive, and the dynamic vision and other reactions are improved to a certain extent. It can make you more flexible in battle, and you can really see in all directions, and hear in all directions. After Kaling Lun, Cut Ku Lun, your speed and flexibility will be improved to the extreme you can achieve. And there will be no breath when you move, even attacking and moving. There will be no wind sound. It should be noted that after Kaling Lun, you will experience more serious muscle fatigue, which may affect your flexibility in the future. But as your elm improves, and your physical strength increases, this negative impact will gradually weaken until it disappears, just like Kuyun Lun, which can be opened repeatedly. Luo Yan nodded. Then Zeng began to instruct him which acupoints he needed to let the Yuan force impact in order to open the Ling Lun. After practicing for an afternoon, Luo Yan basically mastered it, and with a little more practice, he could open it in an instant. After teaching him the spirit opening wheel, Zeng did not leave immediately. He walked to the window and looked at the school outside. Regarding the matter of recruiting team members, I've thought about it for you recently. You can go to Jiuying to find the Iron Horse Gang. They are basically retired soldiers from the Corps. They need money for various reasons. The expenses are huge, and they can't make money from normal jobs. So they got together and became mercenaries. They are called mercenaries, but they basically take any business. When there is no business, they go to the forbidden area to try their luck. But recently, they have had some problems. I'm afraid they will be much worse than before. Facing the situation of being annexed or disbanded, if you can convince them, you can at least get 20 good players. Luo Yan's eyes lit up. If he wanted to recruit this group of people in one go, he would have to complete a task given to him by the Black Wizard. I'll try. Zeng hummed, and then said, after Huang Yuanhang and his son were arrested, his forces also scattered, and each acted on their own. It's okay in the underground city, but Huang Yuanhang has funded several bases on the surface, and a weapons development company. It is said that he has developed a new combat tool that combines mechs and vehicles. These bases and development companies are now doing their own things, and do not follow the control of the underground city. I'm afraid they will be swept up in the near future. Luo Yan then said, what's the current situation of the city lord election? Zeng was about to say something, but suddenly narrowed his eyes, and then snorted, you actually found this place. Luo Yan looked out the window, and saw a short middle-aged man with a bloated waist and greasy hair, carrying large and small bags. Security Minister, Wu Shimo. Zeng introduced to Luo Yan in a low voice. Outside the window, Wu Shimo was already laughing. Brother D, so you are here. It took me a while to find you. Oh, isn't this classmate Luo? Classmate Luo is now a celebrity in Qingyang City. He saved a city. He is really a hero in his youth. I'm so lucky to be able to drink and chat with Brother D and classmate Luo today. Luo Yan raised his eyebrows slightly, thinking that this guy and his brother Wu Changqing are 2 different people. Blinked his eyes gently. The eye of true suchness looked at it. Luo Yan's breathing suddenly became slightly heavy. This Wu, the real person, does not show his face. Wu Shimo, 49 years old, director of the security department of Guangling City. Divine treasure, time and yun classic. Kung Fu, Changmingju. Realm, Tangsuan level 5. Combat skills. This information is completely incomparable to his brother. Who would have thought? This middle-aged man with a vulgar appearance and a mercenary face is actually a master. On the other side, Dizeng had already opened the door and let Wu Shimo in. Luo Yan calmed down and began to dig into the security minister's mind to see what his attitude towards Dizeng was. Come on, this is a wine brewed by Qiyu Shengtang. It tastes good and can replenish qi in blood. It is especially suitable for you, brother. At a table in the training hall, Wu Shimo put the wine on the table and pushed it to Dizeng. Dizeng laughed and took it to look at it. Qiyu Shengtang's wine is not cheap. A bottle like this must cost at least 50,000 or 60,000 work points, right? Wu Shimo laughed. Not much. But in Luo Yan's eyes, he saw it. It's really not cheap. This bottle cost me 120,000. However, if I can impress the discernamed, it's worth it, no matter how expensive it is. Hey, how can I make him believe that I'm sincere? He explores his surface, and I'm the city lord, and we each take what we need. I'm not like Luo Xianai, a coward who is afraid of death. Besides, even if this army does not carry out surface activities, as long as Yanfu exists, the threat of the giant beast will exist. It doesn't make much difference whether I oppose it or not. If I hadn't joined the conservatives to get more support, I would not bother to deal with those short-sighted businessmen. Now if Dizeng is willing to support me to be the city lord, it doesn't matter if I turn to the radicals. Chapter 277 Flowery Shirt and Iron Horse. Wu Shimo left. This middle-aged man was very restrained. He gave gifts, drank, and chatted for a few words. He didn't talk about business. It was like he came to meet an old friend, took some things, patted his butt and left. He didn't give Dizeng any psychological burden, and he was very smooth in dealing with people. Dizeng looked at the wine in his hand and laughed at himself. The hand that took the money is short. Luo Yan didn't use the eye of true suchness to peek into his mind. This was out of respect for this man. However, he also knew that Dizeng should be very entangled. On the other hand, he didn't want to reject Wu Shimo outright. Otherwise, with his temperament, he would never covet a bottle of wine worth hundreds of thousands. Luo Yang coughed dryly. If it's just a matter of interfering in the activities of the core, you can trust him. At least now, his hand won't stretch too far and touch the core. Dizeng glanced at him. He didn't ask Luo Yan why he felt that way. Dizeng just smiled and nodded. Okay. Then he left too. It was evening. Luo Yan put on his cape, took the ring dragon, carried the bone picker on his waist, and came to Nanfengtang. Nanfengtang is the slum of Guangling City, and the shabby audiovisual store he bought before is also in this area. This area is a mixed bag. Bars, black markets, mercenaries, and gang halls can be seen everywhere. The composition of the people here is complicated, and the city has turned a blind eye to this place, so many problems have arisen. But as long as it is not too outrageous, the local protection bureau here will not care at all. For the same reason, people living at the bottom of the city can make a living here without any license. So working during the day and setting up stalls at night is almost the norm for the people at the bottom of this area. Luo Yan pulled his hood and shuttled through the crowd. When passing a barbecue stall, he shouted angrily, "Are you blind? The clothes I just bought, damn it." Then a figure fell at Luo Yan's feet. It was a boy in his jeans, wearing washed white clothes, one cloth shoe, and one slipper on his feet. He was lying on the ground, and a little local dog, who was just 1 month old, was gently touching the boy's trouser leg with its nose. Then it barked at someone in the barbecue stall in a childish voice, as if it was speaking up for its owner. A foot flew over and kicked the puppy, making it whimper. The little boy quickly hugged the dog and said, "Don't hit Ah Huang." The one who hit him was a man wearing a flowery shirt, earrings, and a touch of red in his hair. There was an oil stain on his flowery shirt, which seemed to be accidentally stained by a child, so he was furious. Luo Yan had seen too many things like this. He didn't intend to intervene. But now, the man in the flowery shirt blocked his way. Luo Yan could only whisper, "Please make way." The man in the flowery shirt was stunned for a moment, then turned around and tilted his head to look at Luo Yan. "What? Acting as a hero? Fighting for justice? Why do you pull your hat so low? Are you trying to be cool?" He took off Luo Yan's hat and saw a pair of red eyes. He immediately said poo, unlucky, he is actually a poisonous person. On the other side, the stall owner, who should be the boy's father, had already pulled his son back and quietly packed up the stall, trying to escape, while the man in the flowery shirt was paying attention to Luo Yan. Luo Yan frowned, not wanting to waste time on such a boring thing, so he pulled up his hat and was about to leave. A wine bottle flew over and hit him on the head. Are you deaf or dumb? I'm talking to you. The man in the flowery shirt picked up another wine bottle and smashed it at Luo Yan's feet. Luo Yan caught the wine bottle flying towards his head and smashed it back with his backhand, hitting the man in the flowery shirt on the head. The man in the flowered shirt screamed, his head was bleeding, and he fell on a table, knocking over the food on it. 4 or 5 men around the table stood up, pulled out daggers and iron rods, and rushed towards Luo Yan. The man in the flowered shirt covered his head and shouted, hack him to death. Damn it, you dare to hit our flowered shirt people here, you are tired of living. Before he finished speaking, he saw the flash of knives in the crowd, and his men either had their palms chopped off, or their entire arms removed. When he finished the last word, 4 or 5 of his men all lay on the ground, covering their wounds and screaming. Then he saw that the young man with red eyes slowly put a long knife into the sheath. Luo Yan didn't even look at the man in the flowered shirt, but just raised his foot and kicked a dagger. The dagger immediately flashed with a cold light, broke through the air, and buried in the chest of the man who just shouted and killed. The man widened his eyes, as if he couldn't bear it. Luo Yan actually dared to kill him. You Master Lei Qi will avenge me. When he took his last breath, Luo Yan had already walked away and disappeared in the crowd. At this time, the owner of the barbecue stall was even more agile, pushing the cart and taking his son away from this dangerous place. After a small episode, Luo Yan found the Jiuying. The light in the hutang was dim, and the bricks and stones on the ground were not paved flat. I don't know who poured dirty water directly out of the window and poured it on the ground, startling a pair of wild mandarin ducks. Luo Yan was a little suspicious. Is there really a mercenary group hidden in this place? He was about to step in, and he caught a glimpse of a figure from the corner of his eye. Luo Yan stopped. Standing at the entrance of the hutang with a knife in his arms, he looked around and saw men in flowery shirts walking towards him with murderous intent. Are they from Lei Qi's flower shirt? Flower shirt is a larger gang here. Lei Qi is the leader of flower shirt. All the gang members wear flowery shirts, which is their main symbol. Just when Luo Yan thought these people were coming to seek revenge on him, they unexpectedly came to the entrance of the alley, looked at him, and turned into the West 9 alley. The alley was in chaos. A voice shouted, I'm the Eagle of Huashan. Those who do business here, get out of here quickly, otherwise you will lose some parts of your body later. Don't blame me for not reminding you first. Suddenly, figures emerged from the alley. There were water ghosts doing smuggling business, and girls doing flesh trade. All kinds of people left immediately. At this time, a loud voice sounded from the depths of the alley. Huashan is so powerful that he wants to clear the place when he comes. Why, do you think we iron horses are all dead people? The last sentence was like thunder, echoing in the alley. At the same time, one by one, lights came on, illuminating the alley. From the windows in the alley, black and shiny gun barrels were poked out. On the roofs of the bungalows on both sides of the alley, figures holding guns emerged one by one. At the end of the alley, at the gate of a large courtyard facing the alley, stood a burly figure. He held a gun in his left hand and a knife in his right hand. He had a cigar between his teeth. He had a grenade wrapped around his waist. He stood there with a big knife in his hand, facing the men in flowery clothes in the alley. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 278 Best of 3. Zijiu Tong was tense. Luo Yan thought for a moment, then left the alley, looked around, and finally went to the back of Zijiu Tong, where he sat on the roof of a low building, and looked at the courtyard of the Iron Horse. There were not many people in the courtyard of the Iron Horse, except for the burly middle-aged man guarding the gate. Behind his courtyard, There were mostly women and children, as well as a few thin men. Among them, Luo Yan saw the child who had just been kicked to the ground by the man in flowery clothes at the barbecue stall. It turned out that they were also members of the Iron Horse, but Luo Yan was quite surprised that there were old, young, and weak people in a mercenary group. At this time, in the Jiuying, which was illuminated by the headlights, the laughter of the flowery Jiuying rang out. Guanping, I'm trying to scare your uncle Jiuying. You iron horses are not all dead, but you know better than me how many are left who can fight. Jiuying had a hooked nose, a red face, prominent cheekbones, and a vicious look. Especially his eyebrows, which were thick and sloppy, and blood was flowing between his eyebrows and eyes, showing that he was a man with blood on his hands. He laughed and said, everyone knows that your leader brought a group of good fighters to the forbidden area to do business, but most of them died in the forbidden area. 60 people went, and 20 returned. Half of them are still lying in the hospital waiting to die. Now, there are only 10 fighters in this West 9 Hutang. I will cut off my handle and give it to you on the spot. Why, you want to scare us away with some old, weak and disabled people? No way. Luo Yan looked around, and it was really as Jiuying said. The gunman in the window could not be seen, but there were only 3 or 2 sturdy men on the walls on both sides of the alley. The others were women, children of 15 or 16 years old, and elderly people with white hair. No matter how you look at it, they are no match for Huoshan. The alley is full of strong men in their prime, and everyone is arrogant. What can Iron Horse do? Guanpeng shouted angrily. So what? As long as I'm here at Iron Horse, you flower shirt will never get involved. Guanpeng. Jiuying shouted. Besides being brave for a moment, what else do you have? Did you want these people here to accompany you on the journey? Did you really think that we flower shirt would only have so few people? The next second, countless figures emerged from the rooftops of the surrounding buildings. Men in flower shirts, holding machine guns and machetes, surrounded Jiuying from a high position. Even where Luo Yan was staying, several men in flower shirts climbed up, but before they could see the scene on the rooftop clearly, a strong wind blew in their faces, and they were kicked down by Luo Yan, falling to the ground in the alley, unable to get up for a while. In the yard of Iron Horse, the elderly and children retreated in fear and hid in the house. Guanpeng looked around with veins popping out and angrily said, is Lei Qi still a man? When our leader was here, he didn't even dare to fart. Now that our leader is gone, he knows to come out and bully a bunch of widows and orphans? Jiuying laughed. Why, Guan, are you afraid? It's right to be afraid. Master Lei Qi is kind and brave. He knows that, once your leader is gone, the Iron Horse will be left unattended. A bunch of women and children will be bullied, so he kindly accepted you. Who knew that you, Guanpeng, are so stubborn that you would never agree to it, and you still think you can protect the Iron Horse? Bah, you don't accept the toast, so who can you blame? Jiuying said again, but Master Lei Qi has been telling me to win people over with virtue. How about this? You and I will each send 3 people to play 3 games. 2 wins in 3 games. If you win, Master Lei Qi said that I, Huoshan, will never pay attention to your Iron Horse again. Besides, if anyone provokes you, the Iron Horses, we, the flower shirts, will stand up for you. As for losing, I don't think I need to say anything more. At this point, Guanpeng had no choice. He looked at the old people and children in the yard, gritted his teeth and said, let's fight. Jiuying shouted, it's fun. Then he turned around and said, who will take the lead? I'll do it. One of the men in the flower shirts shouted, and then one person walked. This man was 1.7 meters tall, not very tall, but after taking off the flower shirt, the tight vest inside was exposed. His whole body was muscular, and his fists and elbows were covered with thick calluses. Luo Yan used the eye of true suchness to look at him and casually read the other party's information. Ajing, 29 years old, a backbone of the gang organization Flower Shirts. Realm, primary 3rd level. Looking at the Iron Horse side, Guanpeng named a tall and thin young man to fight. Chenzi, 24 years old, a member of the Iron Horse mercenary group. Realm, primary 2nd level. The strength is about the same. Luo Yan picked up a small stone, threw it behind him without even looking at it. It hit the forehead of a Huoshan member who had just climbed up and showed his head. causing him to scream and fall down again. At this time, a clearing had been cleared in the alley. The members of both sides came forward empty-handed. After Jiuying shouted start, Chen Zi of Iron Horse took the lead and rushed towards the opponent, attacking Ajing's face with a fierce straight punch. Both of them are good at using fists and feet. Soon they were fighting in the alley. After fighting for a while, Ajing used a fake move to trick Chen Zi and then launched a fierce offensive. Chen Zi, who was one step behind, immediately became passive. After parrying for a while, Ajing kicked him in the knee pit with a whip kick. Chen Zi fell to his knees immediately and then was hit in the face by a fierce knee strike from the opponent and fainted on the spot. That's enough. Ajing, come back. Jiuying smiled and looked at Guanpeng. It seems that we are temporarily ahead. Guanpeng, who are you going to send in the second game? Be careful, if you lose this game, you're done. On the rooftop, Luo Yan closed his eyes slightly and he whispered, Iron Horse lost. Yes, Iron Horse lost. If they could win the first game, then with Guanpeng, a master, they could at least get a draw. But now, Iron Horse lost a game. Even if Guanpeng went out by himself, Hua Shan could pick anyone to fight. As long as Jiuying didn't go out, he would be able to cover the bottom. Looking at the entire Iron Horse mercenary group, only Guanpeng can fight Jiuying. No one else can. So, as long as Guanpeng goes out in the second game, Iron Horse will lose. However, can Guanpeng not go out? In the yard, Guanpeng thought again and again, and finally stepped forward. Jiuying, how about we play against each other in the second game? Luo Yang nodded slightly. Guanpeng's move was a solution among solutions. If he could win the first game against Jiuying, then the third game would be unknown. There would be room for a turning point. But if Guanpeng could think of it, how could Jiuying not think of it? The man laughed. We have won one game, so I won't fight so hard. Let other brothers play in the second game. If they lose, it won't be too late for me to play in the third game myself. Guanpeng, have you decided? Do you want to play in the second game yourself, or let the youngsters play? Chapter 279, Money for Life. Guanpeng was immediately caught in a dilemma. At this moment, someone in the yard coughed softly. Let me help you fight in the second round, but there is a price. Guanpeng turned his head and looked back, and saw that a man in a dark cloak had appeared in the yard at some point. The man gently lifted his hat, and his black hair was gently lifted. His red eyes reflected the lights in the yard, and it seemed that thick blood was flowing in them. Guanpeng's eyes narrowed little by little. Master. Definitely a master. Although the other party did not release any energy fluctuations, Guanpeng was sure that the person's combat power was definitely not inferior to his own, just by being able to sneak into the yard without alerting him. What was rare was that the other party was so young, at most in his early 20s. You are? Guanpeng hesitated. Red Ghost. The man gave a name. While Guanpeng was looking at himself, Luo Yan was also reading Guanpeng's information. Guanpeng, 46 years old, deputy leader of the Iron Horse mercenary group. Kung Fu, Vajrasutra. Realm, primary level 5. Combat skills. 1. Mountain Slash. 2. Blade Wind. 3. Eagle Strike. No secrets, no footwork. But for a folk group, being able to practice to the primary level 5 is not bad. Not to mention mastering 3 combat skills. At this time, a child in the yard called out softly, Dad, it's that brother. It was the child at the barbecue stall. Guanpeng looked at the child. Jiuying, do you know this brother? The boy named Jiuying nodded vigorously. The people in the flowery shirt bullied me and my dad, and my brother beat them up. At this time, the boy was pulled over by his thin father, who blamed him for talking too much. Guanpeng looked at Luo Yan again, and tried to ask, what are your conditions? Luo Yan said calmly, for the next 3 years, Iron Horse will be employed by me, and obey my orders. 3 years. 500,000. Guanpeng was startled, then said, are you sure? Mr. Chiggy, Iron Horse is no longer as good as before. Now we only have about 20 people who can fight, and half of them are still lying in the hospital. Luo Yan glanced at the figure outside the yard calmly. I know, the sound of the mountain eagle was very loud just now. I heard it. So, this 500,000 is the money to buy your life. How about it? Consider it. The money to buy your life means that being employed by Chigi is life-threatening. But it is only for 3 years, not for life. Guanpeng was moved. Iron Horse does not want to be annexed, otherwise it would have agreed to Flower Shan's apostrophe request long ago. But now they need money, otherwise those brothers lying in the hospital, whether they can be saved really depends on God's will. And the people who died in the battle need to be given pensions. Even if the treasury of Iron Horse is emptied, it will not be enough. But if there is this 500,000. At this time, the Huashan Shan'ing outside urged impatiently, Guanpeng, please be quick, and give me an answer, after you have made up your mind. Hearing Shan'ing's voice, Guanpeng's face turned cold, and he finally made up his mind. Then I will have to trouble Mr. Kai Jiuying. Luo Yan immediately walked out with a knife, and came to the alley. In the yard, Guanpeng said loudly, this is the brother of our Iron Horse who will fight the second game. Shan'ing was stunned when he saw that it was a stranger. He couldn't remember whether there was this person in Iron Horse, but he didn't care. He sneered and shouted immediately, old ghost, you go. A grey-haired man came out from the crowd of Huashan. He dragged a Han sword, and the tip of the sword scraped sparks on the ground. Luo Yan looked over, and in his eyes were silver cross stars. The other party's information was clear at a glance. Chen Zhu, 31 years old, a backbone of the gang organization Huashan. Realm, primary level 4. Looking at this information, it can be seen that Shan'ing is not careless. This man, whose real name is Chen Zhu and nickname is Old Ghost, should be a master among the backbone members of Huashan. Among these people, his fighting power is second only to Shan'ing. Old Ghost looked at Luo Yan, grinned, and made a provocative gesture of wiping his throat. Luo Yan ignored it. Seeing Luo Yan so calm, Shan'ing frowned slightly, always feeling that something was wrong. But now the arrow is on the string, and has to be shot, so he raised his hand and shouted, start. Old Ghost immediately rushed towards Luo Yan, whistling from his mouth, and the Han sword was raised, combined with the burst of Yuanli fluctuations. It was quite imposing. But when the two were 4 or 5 meters apart, Luo Yan suddenly exploded. Yuanli rushed to the acupuncture points, the secret method of KO and wheel. The cloak was blown by the Yuanli flames like a volcanic eruption, and Shan'ing saw that the long sword in Luo Yan's hand under the cloak made a clang sound and came out of the sheath at lightning speed. He slashed at the backbone members of his side. Xing was puzzled at first, but suddenly he saw that Luo Yan's long sword suddenly burst out invisible ripples that were difficult to detect with the naked eye. The ripples were heavy and crossed a distance of 4 or 5 meters in an instant. The old ghost's eyelids twitched, and he saw that the scene in front of him suddenly distorted slightly. Just like the phenomenon that the scene was distorted by the heat wave in midsummer. The old ghost instinctively crossed the Han sword across his chest, but he was still a little slow. The invisible sword energy that Luo Yan chopped out with his long sword Huanlan flashed past the old ghost. The Yuanli fell back and disappeared, and the cloak covered Luo Yan's body again. Luo Yan didn't look at the old ghost again, and turned to walk into the yard of Iron Horse. Behind him, the old ghost ran 2 more steps, and suddenly his figure split to the left and right, and his flesh and blood were rotten. A cry of surprise rang out. Everyone in the flowered shirt stepped back, looking at the old ghost with blood splattered 5 steps away in disbelief, looking at the body that was cut in half. Xing's eyelids kept twitching. He looked at Luo Yan fiercely. Who is he? He is definitely not one of your Iron Horse. Guanpeng was happy and scared when he saw Chigi being so brave and killing the backbone of Huashan with one sword. He was happy that the Iron Horse was saved today. He was scared that Chigi's methods were cruel. If he did not keep his promise, the consequences would probably be like that of the old ghost. At this time, Guanpeng heard Xing shouting and laughed. Why, are you scared? If you are scared, get out of here. Or, you and I will play and finish this third game. Xing hesitated for a moment. He was not sure of winning against Guanpeng. At this time, his cell phone rang. After answering the call, he put down the phone, frowned and looked at Guanpeng, and then said, let's put this third game aside for now. We will have a good time again when we have a chance in the future. After speaking, he looked at Luo Yan fearfully and made a gesture. The people in Huashan hurriedly put away the body of the old ghost and then retreated. Guanpeng finally breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, cheers rang out from the windows on both sides of the alley and the rooftops of the buildings. An hour later, in the big house of the Iron Horse courtyard, Guanpeng watched the Taoist-like man in front of him grinning as he took out pages of contracts and put them on the table. Guanpeng glanced at the so-called employment contract and the densely packed words on it, and his head began to hurt. Chapter 280, Wild Horse Base. Watching Guanpeng sign his name on the contract, Wen Zhao said with a smile, "Congratulations, Captain Guan, from today on, we are a family." Guanpeng looked at Kai Jiuying sitting next to him, thinking that this man even prepared a contract. Luo Yan did not prepare a contract. It was just that, after dealing with the matter of Huashan, Luo Yan asked Wen Zhao to prepare an agreement and go through the motions. Unexpectedly, this fake Taoist priest actually prepared a set of contracts, which really surprised Luo Yan. Guanpeng coughed and asked, "Mr. Kai Jiuying, what about the money?" "Hey, it's not that Guan is greedy for money, but more than a dozen brothers are still lying in the hospital waiting for money. Besides, if they are cured, they can serve Mr. Kai Jiuying as soon as possible." Luo Yan nodded, took out his mobile phone, and operated it. A moment later, Guanpeng's mobile phone rang, and 200,000 work points were added to the account of Iron Horse. Luo Yan stood up and said, "In the next 2 years, I will pay you another 150,000 every year. Heal the injured as soon as possible, and notify me when they are discharged from the hospital. Goodbye." Walking out of Zijiu Hutong, Wen Zhao followed Luo Yan and whispered, "Captain, the bar has begun to be renovated and decorated. By the way, do you know the name of the bar?" Luo Yan said casually, "The Red House." Wen Zhao nodded. "Okay, I'll ask someone to design a sign and show it to you later." "No need, you make the decision." Luo Yan didn't want to waste time on such trivial details. Wen Zhao continued, "Today, Huashan's men came again, but they were sent away by Jiuying. We have a grudge against Huashan. I'm afraid they will find a way to attack us next." Luo Yan said as he walked, "Collect information about Huashan. When the people of Tima recover, we will start with Huashan." Wen Zhao's eyes lit up when he heard this. "I understand." The two said goodbye, and Luo Yan returned to the rental warehouse alone, changed his clothes, and then returned to the academy. In the next few days, Luo Yan was familiar with the operation of Beilang and the various tactical actions. After adding the jet, after finishing the practice on the surface that day and returning to the underground city, he received a notice as soon as he got off the mecha that the mecha masters of the 3rd squad, the 4th team, and the 5th team, including the reserve, should gather in the conference hall. Luo Yan arrived and saw the Captain Yan Wenbo. The others, including Bei, had already arrived. The 3rd squad and the 5th team were all male mecha masters, sitting in another corner. It seemed that he was the last one to arrive. Luo Yan hurriedly came to Bei and found a seat to sit down. Footsteps sounded. Colonel Liang Jian walked in and stood on the podium. He looked around and smiled. "Everyone is here, so let's get straight to the point." The big screen behind Liang Jian lit up, showing a floor plan of a base. The base looked quite large and was divided into several areas. Then, pictures appeared on the screen one after another. It can be seen that there are combat weapons in these pictures, various types of tanks, several mechs, and some new weapons that combine mechs and vehicles. What you are seeing now is the weapons development base invested by Huang Yuanhang. After Huang Yuanhang was arrested, we sent an ultimatum to the base, ordering them to accept an investigation. However, not only did they refuse, they also detained an investigation team from Guangling. After a period of negotiations, no consensus was reached. Therefore, Guangling decided to use force to resolve this incident. Now authorize our corps, and your 2 teams will assist the Guangling Ground Armed Corps in attacking the Mustang base. This battle is divided into several parts. The first part is to rescue the hostages. The personnel of the Guangling Armed Corps have already started this part, so we don't have to worry about it. The second part is to attack the base. After the hostages are rescued, a full-scale attack will be launched. Your task is to deal with the mechs in the base, as well as those half mecha and half vehicle weapons called henchmen. The third part is the finishing work, which is also the responsibility of the armed corps. So, we are mainly responsible for part of the second part. Liang Jian looked at the tablet computer in his hand. As for the main personnel, mecha information, accomplice parameters, etc. in the Mustang base, it will be distributed to the captains of your two teams later, and then the captains will convey it to the team members. The above is the main content of this meeting. Dismissed. Coming out of the conference room, Yan Wenbo sighed and said, I have to go on a mission again. I have only rested for a few days. If this goes on, I'm afraid my body will not be able to bear it. Then retire quickly. A voice sounded. Luo Yan looked over and found that it was the captain of the 5th team, Heo Dexu. This captain is completely the opposite type of Yan Wenbo. He is tall, ruddy, and has a mouth full of white teeth, showing his masculine nature. Wenbo, your body is too weak. When you meet an opponent who cannot be defeated quickly, you can only stare blankly. If I were you, I would have retired and returned home to enjoy a peaceful life. Yan Wenbo said, Captain Heo, RXIU and I broke up a long time ago. You don't have to target me like this. Luo Yan's eyes immediately swept back and forth between the two captains. It seems that these two people have a story. Heo Dexu snorted, who is targeting you? Not really. He looked at Luo Yan and Bei. You have no future following Wenbo. Apply for transfer after graduation. Then he left with his team members. Yan Wenbo was not angry. He shook his head and said, don't worry about him. Old Heo is just jealous that I'm better at picking up girls than him. Turning around, looking at Luo Yan and Bei. You should go back to school first. I will send you the information later. Go to bed early tonight and set off tomorrow morning. The next day, Luo Yan sat in the mecha carrier and looked at the underground city gradually disappearing outside the window. They set off. They will meet up with Guangling's armed corps in the evening. They will arrive at the Mustang base in 2 days and then launch a full-scale attack depending on the time of rescuing the hostages. Now, on the tablet in Luo Yan's hand, there are scrolling messages about the Mustang base. The Mustang base is divided into several areas. Among them, the 3rd shift and the 4th team are responsible for one of the 2 mecha parking areas. The base has 7 mechas, all of which Huang Yuanhang acquired through various connections and channels. Of course, they are not the latest models, but basically old models that have been eliminated. However, there are 2 mechas in it that need attention. They are the Black Rabbit and the Unicorn. Both mechas are equipped with high-tech operating systems, engines, and energy furnaces. The Unicorn even has a supercore matrix, which has been evaluated by the core and determined to be an advanced body. In addition to these mechas, the Mustang base also has 50 ghosts, plus ground troops and various tanks. The combat effectiveness of the Mustang base is not weak. Guangling believes that, no matter how powerful Huang Yuanhang is, he cannot own such a powerful base. There may be other organizations or forces behind the Mustang base, and Huang Yuanhang may just be a pawn on the table. As for whether this is the case, we will only know after we capture the base and investigate. While looking at the information of the mecha and the driver, Luo Yan suddenly felt a pain in his chest, and then blood vessels all over his body bulged one after another. His pupils shrank slightly, and a thought flashed through his mind. Is a Cuva attack happening? Chapter 281 8 Tricks. Fortunately, the pain came and went quickly. After 2 or 3 seconds, Luo Yan returned to normal, but was sweating. He calculated the time. It was almost 2 months since Bei had removed the poison from him. But it seemed that, even if the red poison had not yet broken out, it would soon. Luo Yan did not dare to be careless. He took out a bottle of super relief agent issued by the Behemoths Strategic Office and gave himself an injection to prevent the red poison from breaking out during the battle. In the evening, 9 monster-like mecha carriers joined the ground armed corps. A convoy, extremely long, set off in the direction of the Mustang base. It was not until sunset that the night enveloped the earth, and they stopped to rest in the desolate wilderness. Luo Yan got off the car and walked. From a distance, he saw Dugu Changxin sitting on a stone, holding a leaf to his mouth, blowing a monotonous but cold sound. In an open space not far away, Beizeng was sitting cross-legged. He did not look like he was practicing, but was practicing meditation. Perhaps sensing Luo Yan's gaze, she opened her unblinded eye and looked at Luo Yan. Student Luo. Luo Yan nodded and sat down beside her. Did I bother you? No. Base 2 ponytails swayed, and she still couldn't control her muscles very well. She showed that weird smile again, but she no longer covered it with her hands like before. Your weirdness. Luo Yan thought about it, and finally uttered only one sentence. Very special. Bei laughed a few times, then counted on her fingers. Hei Wu, Bei Tong, a Fang, Magician Lan Zhao, a Gu, Dan Niang, Wu Du Jiang. A total of 8 weirdness is the limit of what I can control at present. And it's in complete control. Luo Yan nodded. He could only match these names with some of the weirdness. Among them, a Gu and Dan Niang. Luo Yan had never seen Bei use them, so he didn't know what specific abilities these 2 weirdnesses had. He did not ask further. It was rude to ask about someone's hidden cards, especially when the other party was his companion and his savior. Luo Yan was very clear about gratitude and resentment. He would repay the gratitude with gratitude. He would take revenge for the slightest grievance. Therefore, Luo Yan would not ask about it, and would not use the Eye of Truth to find out the truth and hidden cards of people like Dizeng and Bei Zhe. The fragments of the Teichu stone can transform the Shenzang. Classmate Luo, have you used it? Bei said, and then covered his mouth gently with his hand. I seem to have asked something I shouldn't have asked. Luo Yan shook his head. It doesn't matter, I have already used it. The key watching pupil has transformed into the breaking barriers eye. Its abilities are to break barriers, recognize illusions, have farsightedness, strengthen memory, and observe key. Bei's pupils slightly expanded, and then his gaze drifted to the corner of his clothes. Thank you, classmate Luo. Thank you for trusting me so much. Luo Yan said seriously. Didn't you also tell me the names of all the weird things? Bei raised his head and said quickly, but you don't know their abilities. Let me tell you, He Wu can help me find the target I want to find. If it wraps me up, it can make me invisible without leaking any breath. Bei Tong is a paper man who looks like a person burned for my ancestors. It can take attacks on my behalf and teleport me to a safe place in an instant. A Fang is a house that can accommodate me, protect me, and attack the enemy, just like a tank or a chariot. After chatting with Bei for a while, Luo Yan returned to his transporter and practiced visualization behind closed doors. 2 days later, the convoy arrived at a deserted city nearly 100 kilometers away from the Mustang base. With the help of the city as a cover, they prepared to attack the base. After the 2 captains Yan Wenbo and Heo Dexter met with the commander of the armed corps, they conveyed the latest situation to Luo Yan and other team members. The armed corps has rescued the hostages and is now coming to join the main force. After the hostages return safely, it will be the time for the general attack. According to the armed corps' estimate, the general attack will begin in an hour. So Luo Yan and others entered the cabs of their respective mechs and prepared for battle. Sitting in the cab of the White Dragon, Luo Yan observed the surroundings through the panoramic window. On the command desk, a window opened, and there were several off-road vehicles escorting a bus on the road. The bus was carrying the Guangling investigation team that had been heading to the base before. After the team went to the Mustang base, they were detained and used as hostages until now. In a blink of an eye, 10 minutes passed. At this moment, on the screen on the command console, the convoy driving on the road was suddenly shrouded by a black shadow. Before he could figure out what happened, the image in the window suddenly disappeared. Luo Yan frowned slightly. This was obviously caused by the destruction of the drone tracking and filming in the sky. Then, in the communication channel, the communication soldiers of the armed corps were shouting, Red Star, what's wrong with you? We are under attack. Electronic noise and a man's roar sounded in the channel. Soon, a new image appeared on the command console. It can be seen that it was taken from an off-road vehicle that served as a guard. In the shaking camera, a mecha fell from the sky, with wings similar to those of an airplane behind it, and flames were still spraying from behind. Luo Yan recalled the mecha information of the Mustang base and immediately matched it with a mecha called Vulture. This old model of mecha was installed with wings and jets by the engineers of the Mustang base, which can fly short distances. Its arms were equipped with claw-like components. The mecha that had landed on the ground at this moment was using one of its claws to grab the bus and then throwing it out. The bus flew several hundred meters away and fell to the ground. The body of the bus was broken into pieces, and the people inside flew into the air like fleas and then fell to the ground. Luo Yan closed his eyes slightly. The hostage was dead. Although the remaining escort vehicles tried their best to attack the mecha, it was useless. The vulture swept them away in a few seconds. There was a silence in the communication channel. After a moment, the commander of the armed corps shouted, "All troops attack! All troops attack!" Luo Yan quickly switched the communication to the squad channel and heard Yan Wenbo say, "We will proceed according to the original plan, but the vulture must be dealt with first. Luo Yan, go and kill it." Luo Yan said looked out the panoramic window and saw a black dot rising outside the city. Vulture. Suddenly, the white dragon started running, and after running a few steps, the 8 main and auxiliary jets behind the mecha started one by one. Boom. 8 blue flames of varying lengths and thicknesses spurted out from behind the white dragon, forming a huge driving force that made the mecha soar into the sky and chase after the vulture in the distance. Chapter 282, Level 1 Combat Readiness. In the cab, Luo Yan's body swayed slightly. Even if the shock absorbers of the mecha were fully opened, it still could not offset all the impacts of the air and the outer armor. The 8 jets behind the white dragon slowly increased their firepower, gradually increasing the speed of the mecha. At this time, looking out from the panoramic window, the surrounding streets and buildings had become a rapidly receding light and shadow. Boom. When the white dragon passed by a building, the windows of the building reflected the figure of the mecha flying into the sky, and then the windows exploded one by one. The fragments shone in the sun, like gorgeous fireworks. The white dragon suddenly rose to the sky in this blooming fireworks. In the weapon lock window on the command console, the computer used by the white dragon to assist the mecha division was performing a large number of calculations, constantly trying to put the crushes on the vulture. The opponent must have discovered the pursuers behind and immediately made various tactical moves to get rid of the white dragon. Unfortunately, the white dragon was far superior to the old model from the computer to the outer armor. In a moment, the computer was locked, and Luo Yan was not polite, pressing the floating point controller. The flying mech pointed the Hyperion heavy mortar on the back at the enemy plane, and then a deafening gunshot and a dazzling flame spurted out of the muzzle. The barrel retreated violently, shaking the mech slightly, but a ballistic missile flew out with a whoosh, drawing a beautiful arc in the blue sky, and then fell. A moment later, Luo Yan looked through the panoramic window and saw a fireball blooming in the air in the distance. The orange-yellow fireball produced a visible shock wave in the air, and then the white dragon was affected by the shock wave, and the panoramic window trembled slightly. In the fireball, something fell down. It was the vulture. The wings behind the mecha were shattered, the jets were missing, and several pieces of the outer armor were opened. The circuit inside was spraying sparks, and pieces of parts were scattered all the way. Finally, it dived to the ground, rolling continuously, occasionally bouncing up, and fell nearly 1,000 meters before stopping. Luo Yan looked at the mecha lying on the ground. In the eye of true suchness, he could still see the grey light of the humanoid creature in the cockpit of the enemy plane. The mecha master inside was still alive. He did not approach rashly. He locked the enemy plane and fired another ballistic missile. In the cockpit of the vulture, the mecha master's mouth twitched. Originally, he wanted to fake his death, to lure the white dragon to approach, and then wait for an opportunity to kill him. He didn't expect the mecha master on the opposite side to be so cautious that he actually used missiles to bomb his remaining machine. Missiles are not cheap. A sharp whistle sounded in the sky, and a missile swept a parabola and fell down. The vulture stopped pretending to be dead and rolled over, pointing the rifle in his hand to the sky. The muzzle flame erupted, blasting bullets into the air, successfully detonating the missile before it fell. Then the mecha stood up, but before it could react, the white dragon rushed over. In the cab, the huge pushback pressed Luo Yan on the chair, and the jet behind the white dragon spit out long blue flames, allowing the mecha to approach the enemy in an instant. Luo Yan suddenly stabbed the Shenwei rifle in his hand into a gap in the waist of the enemy plane, and with his other hand, he pressed the opponent's rifle and pressed the muzzle to the ground. The two mechas fired at the same time, but the difference was that the bullets of the vulture were all swept on the ground, while the fire line of the white dragon blasted into the body of the opponent's mecha. The bullets shattered various parts, circuits, and skeletons inside one by one. The outer armor on the other side was lifted, and countless things were splashed out with the bullets and scattered on the ground. When the white dragon had used up one magazine, the vulture had been cut in half, with the lower half falling to the ground, while the upper half was held in the air by Luo Yan. At this time, a black shadow was ejected from the cockpit of the vulture, and the driver urgently detached. Luo Yan did not have the habit of letting the enemy go, so he directly lifted up the upper half of the vulture and threw it out. Boom. The half of the fuselage hit the pilot, who was ejected into the air, and the driver screamed and crashed into it, and then fell down and landed on the ground in the distance. The ground shook, but the shaking did not stop, but became stronger and stronger. Luo Yan looked back and saw that the other mechas and armed core convoys in the city had already driven out. The general attack began. Asterisk 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 Mustang base. In the command center, the base supervisor turned pale, stepped back a few steps, looked at the killed vulture on the screen, and then looked at a tall man next to him with a bitter expression. Mr. Lion, the people in the underground city are getting serious. How about we withdraw? This man has gray hair and a green beard on his chin. He is Huang Yuanhang's personal bodyguard, Lion Washan. When Huang Yuanhang was arrested that day, he was the only one who escaped. After that, he left the underground city and came to the Mustang base. Now, this base is basically under his control. Retreat? Lion Washan twisted his neck, making a series of creaking sounds, then stepped forward, suddenly pulled out his pistol, pointed it at the supervisor's head and said, "If I hear this again, I'll send you to see the king of hell." The supervisor smiled bitterly. "We can't fight against the dungeon. Even if we have a few mechas and 50 henchmen, we can't be the dungeon's opponent. I know you want to save Mr. Huang, but it won't help if you act on impulse now." Lion Washan put down his pistol, looked at the big screen and said, "Then do you think you can escape? Even a mecha like the vulture has been killed. You don't think those armed helicopters in the base can help us get rid of them, do you?" The supervisor whispered, "If we had accepted the dungeon investigation from the beginning, we wouldn't have fallen into this situation." Lion Washan glared at him fiercely. "Why, you want to give the base away? This is Mr. Huang's hard work. He has invested all his resources in this base. Besides, you should also know that this base is not owned by Mr. Huang alone. If you send it out like this, will those people let you go? Let Mr. Huang go?" He patted the supervisor's shoulder again. "Don't worry, I have reported the situation here to Mr. Liu. He probably doesn't want this base to be taken over by Guangling, so we will have reinforcement. As long as we resist until the moment the reinforcement arrive, there will be no problem." Hearing him say this, the base supervisor was slightly relieved, and then, one order after another began to be issued. In the Mustang base, the shrill alarm sounded in every corner, and the soldiers ran in an orderly manner and got into their respective battle vehicles. The mecha parking bay opened, and in the dim space, one after another, the energy humming sounded, and the energy nodes emitted various colors of light. The mecha strode out. Behind them, the ghost, which was only more than 10 meters high, with the upper body in the shape of mecha and the lower half as a vehicle, also drove out. The entire base entered the first level of combat readiness. Chapter 283, Sword Key. On the wilderness, the white dragon was running. Although it would be faster to accelerate with the jet, there was no need to waste fuel. This was not a single person operation, but a group operation, so Luo Yan ran very low key in the mecha group of the 3rd squad and the 4th team. In front of him were the Captain Yan Wenbo's embroidered tiger and Ugu Changson's Fedian. On both sides of him were Bay's 8 gates and Kang Shun's judge. The 5 mechas were running on the land like gods, and the Mustang base had already appeared vaguely in their panoramic windows. In the cab, Luo Yan suddenly heard a beep sound, and the message sound of the mobile phone rang. He took it out and looked at it. It was a message from Yukiashu. Just yesterday morning, Liu Zhao of the third team sent an invitation. It seems that he is planning a surface operation that requires the use of mechs. I'm not interested and refused, but as far as I know, the second, fourth, and fifth teams have accepted his invitation. The location of the operation is very suspicious, not far from Guangling City, but it should not be aimed at you. Although the organization likes to raise boo, it cannot do so openly unless it is attacked first. Otherwise, it can only be done in secret like Zhang Ze did. Liu Zhao invited several teams at once. Such an exaggerated act is impossible to target you. But you are in Guangling, I feel obligated to inform you, that's it. After reading this message, Liu Yan frowned slightly, then put away his phone. Now he has no time to care about what the man surnamed Liu wants to do. Even the matter of Liu Zhao hiring Zuan Wu to assassinate him, he has to put it aside for the time being and wait until the time is right to respond to the captain of Team 3, not to mention the current matter. After putting down the phone, Liu Yan had heard the explosion, and Guangling's ground armed corps had begun to bombard the base. Looking out through the panoramic window, Liu Yan saw that the Legion tanks in the distance formed artillery positions and bombarded the Mustang base. The missile launchers fired missiles from a great distance into the air, passing over the mechs of Liu Yan and others, and landing accurately on the base. Under such firepower bombardment, although the Mustang base had a defense system, it was also blown to pieces. After only a few minutes of bombing, the defense system of the Mustang base was almost paralyzed. In the base military camps, vehicle parking lots, various firing points, buildings, and even mecha parking warehouses were flattened, knocked down, and cleared out in the whistling and pouring shells and violent explosions. When the first wave of bombing was paused, huge black shadows broke through the flames in the thick smoke and fire, pulling the thick smoke and rushing out. The mechs of the Mustang base were dispatched. These mechs opened the way, and behind them, there were champions more than 10 meters high, with various tanks. The Mustang base began to fight back. In the cab of the White Dragon, Yan Wenbo's voice rang out in the team channel. It's our turn. Follow me. Liu Yan looked out the panoramic window, and the light and colorful embroidered tiger took the lead and rushed towards the enemy's mecha group. The flying electric followed closely behind with a gun, and the wind pulled the red tassel on the mecha's helmet to the back. Looking from a distance, it looked like a stream of fire. The classical black mecha judge, under the control of Kang Shun, moved while forming seals, and then the mechas of Liu Yan and others, including the judge, were all covered with a layer of iron armor. Soon, the mechas of the third squad and the fourth team each looked for opponents to fight, thus reducing the pressure on the ground armed corps. The embroidered tiger met a heavy machine, and with its flexible and maneuverable characteristics, it kept moving around the enemy machine. The 10 fingers of the embroidered tiger popped out claws made of yuanli, and with one claw, the armor forged with multiple layers of materials was immediately torn into clear traces. After the Ryohu moved around the enemy plane for a while, the heavy machine body was covered with traces and electric fire kept jumping out. Fidian was much more courageous. The long spear Langdon danced like a windmill in the mecha's hand, picking up and stabbing those ghost half-mechas along the way. The ghosts knew how powerful they were, and retreated one after another, concentrating their firepower on the various war vehicles of the armed legion. Fidian did not deliberately go to trouble the ghosts. Langdon raised and swung out a large arc, hitting a green mecha. Nearby, a silver-white enemy plane wanted to help, but unexpectedly, a pair of huge arms quietly stretched out from behind the mecha. This arm was covered with various complex patterns, and the dark blue flames condensed into long claws, and suddenly tore at the back of the silver-white enemy plane. The outer armor of the machine body was immediately torn into several holes, and the circuits inside were torn off. Some stretched out from the gaps, and some sprayed electric fire in the body. Strange blue mandrill, the magic machine 8 gates not far away, at some point, has switched to a ferocious mask with a green face and fangs. Everyone has an opponent. Liu Yan is no exception. He raised the heavy shield Taishan, and rushed towards a dark red mecha with a Shenwei rifle. He fired while charging. The enemy aircraft on the opposite side also made a similar reaction, thinking of knocking the other side down with bullets. Both sides were rising up with yuanli, and using defensive magic, but the dark red mecha had no shield and its Yuanli was far less profound than Luoyan. The two mechas fired guns at each other. The Yuanli layer of the dark red mecha was quickly consumed, and then the body was constantly hit by bullets, and sparks flew everywhere. On the other hand, Luoyan. Now that the white dragon has lost the thick armor barrier, it has added the heavy shieldtation. The heavy shield with 385 layers of armor is simply not something that an ordinary rifle can penetrate. Moreover, the mountainous water vapor surrounding the mecha weakened the impact of the bullets in advance. When they hit the shield, they made only a ding-dong sound, but could not hurt the white dragon at all. The dark red mecha quickly realized the reality and stopped shooting at the white dragon in vain. The mecha suddenly threw away its rifle, opened its hands, and dark red long claws condensed at its fingers. It suddenly accelerated and pounced on the white dragon. Luoyan also abandoned his gun and used a sword. He pulled out the long sword Fian, but did not face the enemy plane. Instead, he locked the opponent. The long sword made a sound and slashed 3 times in an instant. Suddenly, 3 long sword ki twisted and broke through the air, slashing at the enemy plane. The mecha master in the dark red mecha saw that the scene outside the panoramic window was slightly distorted, and a sense of crisis surged in his heart. His body was like an electric shock, and his hair stood up. He shouted and controlled the mecha to turn in the air to avoid the range of the sword ki. But the left arm and waist of the mecha were still hit by the sword ki. The arm of the mecha was immediately broken into several pieces, and a hole was opened on the waist, with electric fire coming out. Luoyan took advantage of the situation, and did not show mercy. He just kept his distance, and one invisible sword energy after another burst through the air, slashing at the opponent in a disorderly manner. For a moment, the space between the two mechas was filled with sword energy. Chapter 284 Sword Moving Wind and Thunder. The battle was over. Although the dark red mecha tried its best to evade, it was still chopped into pieces by Luoyan's sword energy. The dark red mecha didn't even touch the skin of the white dragon. The disparity in strength between the two sides was obvious. Luoyan looked around. Guangling's ground armed corps had already fully attacked the Mustang base. In terms of number and equipment, Guangling's armed corps had an advantage. Although the Mustang base had half mecha chicks, this kind of weapon was not a mecha after all. It was just that its flexibility and firepower were better than ordinary tanks, and it could not play a decisive role. Guangling's armed corps was divided into dozens of attack teams, following the safe passages that had just been cleared by long-range artillery fire, and quickly attacked the Mustang base. Gunshots, explosions, and screams came one after another. The battle was very fierce. Guangling's side was well equipped and had fierce firepower, and the troops of the Mustang base could hardly raise their heads. When facing the ghost half mechas, the Guangling army would use electromagnetic pulse bullets. As long as a few hits, those half mechas would be basically useless. It can be seen that the Guangling army came prepared this time. According to this situation, the Mustang base can be taken down today. Luoyan retracted his sight and prepared to help other teammates. At this time, an energy signal obviously appeared on the radar at the edge of the battlefield. It was not the energy spectrum signal of the Behemoth, but the high energy reaction released by the mecha's energy furnace. Almost in the next second, at the back of the team, the judge who was responsible for supporting everyone with the mysterious art suddenly exploded with a fireball behind him, and then the bulge of the chest armor broke. A bullet spun out of the chest of the mech, bringing up countless fragments and parts. In the team channel, Kang Shun exclaimed, "I was shot. There are other mechas. Or, there are reinforcement at the Mustang base." Luoyan had already controlled the white dragon to run towards the judge, raised the heavy shieldation, and protected the black mech. Bang! As soon as he put up the shield, the Kenshin shook violently. The huge impact force made Luoyan almost unable to hold the shield steady, and the mecha slid back a little. The eye of truth was turned on. The world turned into a stick figure. Luoyan saw a mecha in the distance, half squatting on the ground, holding a rough sniper rifle horizontally. The distance between the two sides was at least more than 10 kilometers. If the terrain here was flat, Luoyan would not be able to see this mecha even with the eye of truth. In the cockpit, Luoyan frowned. His sword energy could not reach such a long distance. To knock down this sniper mecha, he had to go forward, but the judge behind him was injured. If he left, Kang Shun might be in danger. At this time, Bei's voice sounded in the team channel. I will protect the judge. Luo Yan looked back and saw that the 8 gates had already dealt with the silver-white enemy aircraft and rushed over here. Luo Yan nodded, immediately stood up and rushed towards the sniper mecha. The mortar locked onto the enemy aircraft and opened fire. Boom. The ballistic missile broke through the air, whistling, and fell towards the enemy mecha 10 kilometers away. The dark green mecha with multiple electronic eyes on its head made a quick decision and ran away. The sniper position was blown up into the air in the next second. In the violent explosion, the fireball expanded and then exploded, forming a violent shockwave. The sniper mecha was shocked and turned over several somersaults on the ground. The mecha master inside quickly adjusted his state, half squatted and stood up, and saw a mecha quickly expanding in the field of vision. The mecha master in the sniper mecha exclaimed, "So fast?" Indeed. If it were an ordinary mecha, it would definitely not be able to cross nearly half the distance in the time it takes for a missile to explode. But the White Dragon was equipped with a jet, and with full power, it took advantage of the gap when the sniper mecha was avoiding the missile and rushed nearly half of the distance. The sniper mecha was also calm and immediately set up the sniper rifle, and the several electronic eyes on its head flickered and then fired steadily. Bang, bang, bang. The 1-second interval of shooting made the White Dragon with a heavy shield shake constantly. In order to maintain stability, Luo Yang could only reduce the power of the jet and slow down the speed. Bang. In another gunshot, the White Dragon's right leg was shot, and the outer armor was completely sunken, with the sniper bullet deeply buried in it. However, in the sniper mecha, the driver's pupils slightly dilated and exclaimed softly, "So hard." According to his idea, this shot should have shot off the White Dragon's right leg. But unexpectedly, it only deformed the outer armor and slightly reduced the mobility of the mecha. Then, he saw that the bullet embedded in the right leg of the mecha was squeezed out, and then a bubble appeared on the outer armor of the White Dragon. When the bubble disappeared, the outer armor had returned to normal. Damn, what kind of material armor is this thing made of, and it can even repair itself? Seeing this, the driver in the sniper mecha couldn't sit still. In the White Dragon's cab, Luo Yan glanced at the mecha status window on the command console, which showed that the damaged outer armor had recovered. This was the result of the TSUI material and the Matrix's regeneration characteristics, which greatly increased the White Dragon's chance of survival on the battlefield. Looking at the White Dragon with several blue flames gushing out from behind, the driver of the sniper mecha decisively threw away the sniper rifle and pulled out a long knife from his back. When the White Dragon hit him, the sniper mecha rolled sideways and dodged. But before the mecha could adjust, an invisible sword energy swept across its left shoulder, immediately cutting a hole and greatly reducing the flexibility of the mecha's arm. The empathy system made the driver inside clench his teeth in pain, and he didn't even know how his mecha was damaged. When he looked out of the panoramic window, the White Dragon had turned off the jet and turned back, and a long sword with cloud patterns fiercely chopped at him. The sniper mech could only swing its long sword and hit the long sword Fian. Then the two mechas did not retreat, and the long swords chopped at each other desperately, colliding with countless sparks. After another fierce clash, the sniper machine gun suddenly moved forward, and the shoulder swung to hit White Dragon. White Dragon immediately retreated, and the sniper mech took the opportunity to sweep with a knife, trying to cut White Dragon's waist. But as soon as this sweep was made, White Dragon jumped up and pulled away, as if he had expected it. At the same time, a sword attracted wind and thunder, and chopped down in vain. The sword tip burst out in visible ripples, distorting the scene. The next second, the electric snake leaped, and the silken silk were entangled with the sword energy, forming a wild thunder, which instantly passed through the enemy armor with the middle door wide open. The sniper mech first stopped moving, and then the energy furnace exploded, and a large ball of flames and parts sprayed out from the broken outer armor, and scattered all over the ground. In the White Dragon's cab, Luo Yan was also startled. The sword he used just now was not just pure sword energy. It was a new skill derived from the combination of sword energy and thunder. Although he had been pondering and practicing, it was not until this moment that he successfully used this fighting skill. Luo Yang named this move, Sword Moving Wind and Thunder. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 285, External Aid to the Base. In the cockpit of a certain mecha, a handsome man wearing gold-rimmed glasses, who looked like a college student, curled his lips. Old Zio, the owl, was killed, and the record is that a mecha was severely damaged. Is this the best sniper in your team? In the communication channel, someone snorted and said, "Shut up, are you blind? Didn't you see what kind of mecha killed the owl? Let me make a bet. If that thing is not a God Guardian level mecha, I will chop off my head and let you kick it like a ball." The handsome man laughed. "Don't get angry, I'm just talking casually, but I really didn't expect that Guangling would actually deploy a God Guardian level mecha against a surface base. Although judging from the performance, it should be just barely entry level." The old Zio in the communication channel said, "Stop talking nonsense, go ahead. Let me make it clear in advance, if you don't make enough money on this trip, the loss of the owl will be yours." The handsome man smiled. "Of course." He then put on his helmet. Then he said calmly, "Zhu and Ming, third team, all machines attack." Suddenly, outside the panoramic window, a number of mechas swayed over and were thrown into the battlefield. On the battlefield, Luo Yan just checked the mecha that was killed and finally picked up the opponent's sniper rifle. This thing can also be sold for hundreds of thousands of work points, so it can't be wasted. At this time, Yan Wenbo's voice sounded in the communication channel. "Zio Luo, come back. Reinforcement from the Mustang base have arrived." In the radar, light spots appeared one after another around the battlefield, coming from all directions to the battlefield and the base. There were quite a few mechas, 12 light spots, moving quickly towards the battlefield. Luo Yan did not show off and immediately returned to join his team. Halfway through the walk, he saw the Xiuhu and other mechas rushing to join. Only Kang Shun's judge was missing. It seems that the previous shot hurt the mecha badly. At this time, through the panoramic window, you can already see tall shadows running towards the battlefield. Just by looking at the appearance of those mechas, you can tell that they are different from the old mechas at the Mustang base. They are all the latest models. Some of them are running on the ground, some are flying low, with blue flames behind them, and some are in the shape of wild beasts, but there are more mysteries. The external broadcast of Embroidered Tiger sounded, "We are the mecha team of the 3rd Squad of the Guangling City Surface Exploration Corps. We are unregistered foreign mechas. Please stop the action immediately, otherwise, it will be regarded as a provocation to us." The captain of the 5th team of the 3rd Squad, Haodexu, also made the same broadcast, but those mechas had no intention of stopping. So Yan Wenbo said in the communication channel, "It seems that they are unwilling to stop, so there is nothing to say. Kill them." Embroidered Tiger immediately released his Yuan Li and ran towards the 5 mechas coming this way. With a push of his hands, a torrent of Yuan Li broke through the air and vaguely outlined the shape of a tiger. Then, a group of light balls condensed by purple electric light burst out, covering the 5 enemy planes like cannonballs. In the explosions that followed, the 5 enemy planes were hit to varying degrees, and the enemy's formation was disrupted. Taking advantage of this moment, Fidian raised his spear and Langdon swept across, pushing the 2 mechas apart with great force. 2 huge arms covered with patterns stretched out from the ground, grabbed the feet of the 2 mechas, and knocked them down. Finally, White Dragon spurted out blue flames from behind, accelerated suddenly, raised the heavy shield Taishan, hit a mecha, and forcibly pushed it away. So far, the 5 enemy planes were separated by Luo Yan and others. Don't panic. Ajin, cast iron armor for us. Ace, you and ZH Yuling, cooperate to quickly kill the mecha with the spear. I'll go and avenge Owl. Leohi, that captain is left to you. As for the remaining one, your team can handle it. In the cockpit of a mecha, a man who looked like an old monkey quickly assigned tasks. A hoarse voice sounded in the communication channel of the command console. Zero, don't point fingers at me. Forget it this time. Don't do it again. This old monkey-like man was the captain of the 4th team of the Jiuying department. Zero Ting. He snorted and cursed. Why are you pretending? Everyone knows that you're 5th teamies, so poor that you are almost selling blood. Otherwise, you wouldn't run over here, just because LIU threw a bone to you. What did you say? Your 4th team is not that good. You, Zero, are now in a lot of foreign debts. If it weren't for Captain LIU to help you pay some off, I don't think you can continue to be the captain. At this time, someone in the communication channel coughed dryly. To captains, please do it for LIU's sake. How about we focus on defending the enemy now? Zhao Teng snorted, and then locked his target, Luo Yan's white dragon. In the cab, Luo Yan felt something, and looked at a mecha that was obviously coming towards him. This mecha is all black, with slender arms and a rather strange shape. Although it is a mysterious machine, it gives people a feeling of a monkey. In addition, the mecha is carrying a sword, a spear, a sword and a stick, which looks out of place. In the red eyes, a silver cross star appeared. Luo Yan opened the eye of true suchness, and looked at the mecha, and saw a group of human-shaped grey light in the mecha's cockpit. Read the information. Zhao Teng, captain of the 4th team of the Black Witch Jiuying department. Divine treasure, spirit monkey, mimicry system. Kung fu, moving mountain kung fu. Realm, advanced level 2. Combat skills. 1 mountain slash, knife. 2 mountain carrying, spear. 3 shattering, sword. 4 chaotic cloak, staff. Jiuying 4th team. Luo Yan closed his eyes slightly, and now he knew what Liu Zhao invited the other teams of the Jiuying department to do in Guangling. The Corps had previously speculated that the Wild Horse base was unlikely to be built by Huang Yuanhang alone. Now it seems that it is true. It turns out that Huang Yuanhang is supported by the Black Witch behind him, and the technology of those ghost half-mechs may have been provided by Liu Zhao. Liu Zhao is obviously developing his own power, and Huang Yuanhang is just a pawn of his, a cover in the open, and I'm afraid that even Yukiyoshi will not know this information. Now Guangling's attack on the Wild Horse base is equivalent to attacking the power that Liu Zhao has cultivated with great difficulty, so he naturally has to come to support. After thinking this through, Luo Yan is even less willing to let the captain of Team 4 in front of him leave. If he can kill a captain, there will definitely be greater turmoil in the Jiuying branch. The more chaotic the internal situation is, the more Luo Yan can fish in troubled waters. At this moment, his eyes under the black hair were cold. The white dragon stepped back a few steps, and as the Yuanli rose, a circle of blood-colored light gathered around him, dyeing the mecha blood red. Secret method, Blood Shura. Chapter 286, Keeping the Interior Afloat. The arrival of several teams from the Jiuying division disrupted Guangling's plan, although the mechas of the 2 teams of the Corps quickly attacked. However, Liu Zhao invited 3 teams, and there were a total of 13 mechas, including the one killed by Luo Yan. This is not a small number. The 3rd squad, 4th team and 5th team of the Guangling Corps intercepted 9 mechas, and 3 still crossed the interception, and entered the Mustang base. Fortunately, Liu Zhao did not want to destroy the base he had built with great difficulty, and was unwilling to cause extensive damage. He only defended the 2 most important locations, the Weapons Research and Development Building, and the Command Center. The other locations were still resisted by the original soldiers and tanks of the base. However, in this way, the base can calmly mobilize and gather the troops without having to worry about the 2 important areas. The troops drawn from the 2 important areas were invested in other battlefields, and the advancement of the Guangling Armed Corps was not as fast as before. This is because the Guangling Mecha Corps killed the old mechas in the base first. Otherwise, the problem would be even bigger. Faced with this situation, both Yan Wenbo and Haodexu gave the same instructions to their team members. Fight against foreign enemies first, then stabilize the internal situation. Hearing this order, Luo Yan felt more at ease to deal with the enemy in front of him. Captain of Jiuying Team 4, Zhao Teng. At this moment, he turned on the prophet to predict the opponent's movements. At the same time, he used the footwork dragonfly skimming the water to move around Xiao Teng's mecha. As long as the opponent's mecha reveals a flaw, Luo Yan can always detect it first, and then a twisted blood energy bursts out and hits the enemy's armor. Even if it can't hit the vital point, the blood evil attached to the sword energy will corrode Xiao Teng's body armor and cause irreparable damage. There is no doubt that Xiao Teng's realm is above Luo Yan. However, compared with high-level masters like Ukiashu, Xiao Teng, who has no footwork, secrets, or unique skills, except that his Yuanli is a little thicker, there is not much to be colorful about. Having or not having secrets and unique skills is completely different on the battlefield. At this moment, Luo Yan is interpreting this with his actual actions. With the help of his footwork and the jet behind him, he could always make Xiao Teng miss his chance repeatedly, under the premise of predicting the opponent's actions with the profit. At the same time, he used the sword energy to attack from a medium and long distance, and with the help of the effect of blood evil, he continuously weakened Xiao Teng's energy and the defensive performance of the outer armor. Xiao Teng's mecha was originally covered with a layer of iron armor, but it was stolen by Base Magician and then cast on White Dragon. While weakening, strengthening teammates, this method made Xiao Teng stare. In addition, until now, even the skin of White Dragon has not been scratched. Although Xiao Teng knew it was wrong, he gradually lost his patience. Finally, he shouted through the mecha's external broadcast, "Over there, if you have the ability, fight me with real swords and guns. What's the point of running around?" His fighting skills are all melee type, unlike Luo Yan who has medium and long range attack methods such as sword energy. Therefore, he has been beaten all the time. Although he is not defeated now, he still can't hold his face. After all, several captains were on the battlefield. He couldn't even deal with a team member for most of the day. How could he convince the others in the future? In the cockpit of the White Dragon, Luo Yan ignored him and continued his guerrilla tactics. In the Eye of Truth, Xiao Teng's Yuanli was constantly decreasing, and the armor layer of the mecha was constantly eroded. The comprehensive defense level of the mecha dropped again and again. When it dropped to a certain level, Luo Yan controlled the White Dragon to rush towards the opponent. Seeing the White Dragon rushing, Xiao Teng was not surprised but happy. He swung his broadsword and rushed forward. Clang! The long sword iron and the broadsword collided with each other, making a tooth-grinding sound. Xiao Teng's mecha jumped up suddenly, and his movements were like a monkey. He rolled and landed behind the White Dragon. The broadsword chopped straight, with the momentum of splitting the mountain, and chopped at the head of the White Dragon. Xiao Teng seemed to have seen that under his door opening slash, the opponent's mecha in the cab would be split open by his sword. Unexpectedly, the jet behind White Dragon suddenly ignited, and with a bang, the mecha quickly moved away, leaving Xiao Teng's slash empty. Does this kid have eyes behind his head? Xiao Teng was impatient in the cab, controlling the mecha, stepping on the ground to shake, and rushed towards White Dragon. White Dragon turned around, and the long sword iron stabbed forward straight, bringing a sword light, swallowing and spitting out sharp light, stabbing at the chest of Xiao Teng's mecha. Xiao Teng's magic is Spirit Monkey, which is a mimicry magic that allows Xiao Teng to move like a smart monkey. Just like the jump and volley roll just now, and now the mecha's body twisted incredibly flexibly. It made the stabbing iron sword pass by the mecha's chest. Although the sharp blade still cut an opening in the mecha, it was only a very shallow layer, and did not damage the circuit inside, let alone the energy furnace. At this time, Xiao Teng, who had pulled closer, raised his broadsword again, and chopped at the White Dragon with another mountain slash. Xiao Teng's visualization technique is the mountain moving technique. This advanced technique is said to have the ability to move mountains, and the attack is naturally powerful and heavy. At this moment, the broadsword whistled and chopped the White Dragon horizontally, trying to cut the mecha in half. But at this time, a heavy shield appeared in front of the broadsword, and the mountain slash chopped on the Taishan, making a dull sound. However, it did not split the heavy shield Taishan as the name of the combat skill indicated, but it still knocked the White Dragon sideways. But this is not the effect Xiao Teng wants. The attack that was originally a sure thing was blocked by Luo Yan, and Xiao Teng almost jumped onto the seat. That guy not only has eyes behind his head, but also has eyes all over his body. Otherwise how could he see through my hidden attack? He didn't know that Luo Yan didn't see through it, but predicted it in advance. Straightforward combat skills like slashing the mountain are too easy to predict. At this time, Xiao Teng suddenly felt his feet tightened, and he looked down. He didn't know when two Yuanli chains appeared under his feet. At the same time, he saw White Dragon raised his long sword, and thought that this guy was going to use that painless sword energy again. Xiao Teng first took out a long sword from his back, and the sword slashed at the Yuanli chain together, breaking the chain, and rushed towards White Dragon. But when he saw the Phi Iron sword burst out a sword light like red clouds, Xiao Teng suddenly felt a chill in his heart. Intuition told him, this is not an ordinary sword energy. The next second, in the panoramic window, the sword light, as thin as smoke and blood red as a hole, and like the aurora, quickly expanded in Xiao Teng's field of vision. Can't dodge. He had this thought, and at the same time he roared, releasing his energy with all his strength, and letting the mech's arms protect his head. He hoped that he could take the blow. There was no sound of collision. The blood-colored rainbow light was like a red-hot knife cutting through cheese, easily penetrating Xiao Teng's energy layer in the outer armor of the body that had long been corroded by the blood evil. In an instant, it broke out from the back of the mecha, went 1,000 meters away, and then slowly dissipated on the battlefield. Secret skill, a long rainbow. Chapter 287 Sense of Security. Eye of Truth. Luo Yan saw Xiao Teng's blood and ki return to zero in an instant, and the grey light of the creature split into two and quickly dimmed and disappeared. Then Xiao Teng's mecha split into two, staggered left and right, and the energy furnace exploded violently, emitting a strong light like a miniature sun, blowing the mecha into pieces. However, the four weapons on the mecha, the knife, sword, gun, and stick, were preserved and scattered. In line with the virtue of thriftiness, Luo Yan recovered the four weapons, and then saw the fragments of Xiao Teng's mecha scattered all over the ground, and a strong confidence surged in his heart. Now, he relies on secret methods, footwork, and unique skills. Even if he is in the intermediate realm, he can kill those weaker advanced realms. Recalling the battle just now, the prophet predicts the opponent's movements. Pull away the distance and use footwork and combat skills to fight gorillas, and use the secret method Bloodshura to corrode the opponent's Yuanli and outer armor defense. In the end, the unique skills are used as the winner and the final word. This tactic can kill opponents who lack mobility or explosive power, and have no medium and long range attack methods without injury. Throwing the spoils together with the sniper rifle he just picked up, Luo Yan looked around the battlefield, then selected the next target, and joined the battle. However, after using the unique skills, the energy consumed was too great, and a belt of long rainbow could no longer be used. But as long as it is not against a high level realm, it is not a big problem. At the same time, the mechas of several teams of the Xuanming department suddenly exploded in the communication channel. Tell me quickly, am I dazzled? Why did Xiao Teng's signal disappear? Our captain was killed. It was that Shen Wei. That mecha is too powerful. Damn, he's coming for me. Keep calm, don't panic. We still have the advantage in numbers. Bullshit, which eye of yours sees that we have the advantage? Liu Xiao, if you want to continue to sit on the sidelines and watch, I'll forgive you for not accompanying me. Although your price is good, my life is more important. Yes, Liu Xiao, we are fighting hard here, and you are waiting in the back to pick up the ready-made goods. You and I talked back and forth, almost blowing up the communication channel. In the mecha cockpit, Liu Xiao, the captain of Team 3 with delicate features and gold-rimmed glasses, had a gloomy face. The relationship between the teams in the Xuanming branch is not friendly, and it is common for them to fight against each other. This time, Liu Xiao offered a high price to invite the other three teams. But it is undoubtedly a daydream to expect them to unite. If it was just an ordinary team member who died, it would be fine. But it was Xiao Teng, a team leader, who died. This undoubtedly made the captains of the remaining two teams panic. They would never throw their lives here for Liu Xiao. Xiao Teng's death suddenly broke a corner of their alliance, which was not very solid to begin with. If Liu Xiao did not express his position at this time, the alliance would probably have to break up on the spot. At this moment, Liu Xiao only said, Liu Jun, Lin Zha, you go. The two mechas protecting the R&D building immediately strode away and rushed to the battlefield outside the base to meet the mechas of the Guangling Corps. Seeing the fate of the three teams, the other team stopped pouring cold water. In the cab, Liu Xiao looked at the white dragon mecha on the battlefield in the distance with hatred. He originally thought that his team would defend the base and preserve their strength. If other teams were damaged in this battle, then in the next competition, their three teams would have a greater advantage. But now, thanks to this God Guard class mecha, the plan failed, and naturally they were full of resentment towards the mecha. After the two mechas of Zhu and Ming Team 3 joined the battlefield, the pressure on Guangling increased greatly, especially Liu Xiao was determined to raise the reward by another 30%, which gave the other teams a boost. The mechas were fully powered, and there was a tendency to suppress the two teams in Guangling. In the cockpit of the White Dragon, Luo Yan controlled the mecha and used the shield to block the sword of the 8 gates. Then the long sword Fian pierced out from behind the shield, driving straight into the body of the enemy aircraft. The White Dragon shook his wrist, and the long sword broke out of the body, peeling off a large piece of outer armor and the internal circuit cables. The wound was so big that the skeleton inside could almost be seen. Countless armor still connected to the cables hung outside the body, looking extremely miserable. At this time, a huge figure approached, but it was a white weird headless general. The headless general was wearing thick armor, which was stained with blood, and had straight steel spikes sticking out. On those steel spikes were heads of humans, beasts, and different races. He dragged a large sword full of gaps in his hand, walked to the side of the Zhu and Ming department's mecha, and chopped it down with one sword, slashing into the head of the mecha, smashing the mecha master inside, and the cab together. Exclamation mark. In the cab of the 8 gates, looking at the White Dragon holding a heavy shield to protect his side outside the panoramic window, the little white face in the helmet was red, and the corners of his mouth were raised, revealing a weird smile. Hehe. With classmate Luo by my side, I feel so safe. Suddenly, an alarm sounded in the cab. The alarm sounded in all the mecha drivers from Guangling. Luo Yan also heard it. Then the broadcast was heard. Attention. Attention. Space shockwave energy detected. Space shockwave energy reaches critical point. Yambu space will open in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1 Yambu space is open. At this moment, even without receiving warning, the personnel and other mechas felt an inexplicable tremor. It was an instinctive fear, irrational, as if the natural enemy was watching them overhead. So all the mechas stopped fighting, and even Liu Xiao in the Mustang base looked up at the sky. In the sky, a dark line stretched out in a twist and turn, crossing everyone's heads in an instant, and then the line began to expand and change, forming a huge branch-like shape. Yambu space. The time and location of the opening of this space have been irregular so far. It seems to open randomly and release giant beasts randomly. Just like now, the battle between the two sides is raging, and Yambu space suddenly opens, and then from the black space-like branches, clusters of fruit-like black shadows fall down, and halfway through falling to the ground, it began to expand in 3 dimensions, forming one giant beast after another. Bang, bang, bang. Some of the giant beasts fell outside the base, some fell inside the base, and one of them even fell in front of Liu Xiao. The shock waves caused by the giant beasts landing caused the base to set off waves of stone waves. Under this violent vibration, various buildings, even if they did not collapse immediately, also had huge cracks and began to tilt. Damn it. Liu Xiao, who was wearing gold-rimmed glasses, could no longer hold back, opened the Yanfu space at this time, and released the giant beast. "God, you can't bear to see me." He cursed a few times, then contacted the base command center, and attacked the giant beast in front of him at the same time. While attacking, Liu Xiao shouted, "Retreat! Retreat! The base can't be saved. Take all the things in warehouse number 3 away, I will cover you, quickly." Chapter 288 Danyang. Dragon. Luo Yan looked out of the panoramic window. A huge black shadow fell from the sky and landed on the ground not far away, spraying tons of gravel into the air. Then, in the dust curtain that fell like mist and rain, the roar of the giant beast sounded, and then a giant beast with blue-black hair fluttering like clouds rushed out like a buffalo. It passed by the white dragon obliquely and hit a mecha of the Jiuying branch. It rushed forward against the mecha and disappeared in a blink of an eye. This situation happened everywhere on the battlefield. The giant beast that descended from the Yanfu space randomly selected its opponents. Whether it was the Guangling core or the Jiuying branch, it might be attacked by the giant beast. In this way, the number advantage of the mecha of the Jiuying branch was immediately gone. Looking at the Mustang base again, 3 giant beasts descended there. One was like an orangutan that was magnified countless times, and the other was a big eagle, which were a lower level 3 ape and a lower level 2 goo eagle. If it were just these 2 giant beasts, Liu Xiao would not have taken them seriously, but the third one was a headache. It was also a feathered insect, similar in appearance to a magpie, but with 2 heads and 4 legs, and a pair of large wings with red and black feathers. It flapped its wings and slowly descended to the ground, and the moisture in the air evaporated quickly, and then wisps of flames rose. When the wings of this giant beast suddenly spread out, a circle of flames was set off, which spread in all directions in an instant, causing the base to explode everywhere, and flames to rise. Codename. Level, upper level 2. Type, feathered insect. Features, fire control, flame transformation, tempering, wind raising. The information of this giant beast was matched in the Black Witch archives and displayed on the barrier on the command desk, which made Liu Xiao feel a headache. At this time, a red cone of light shot down from the sky and hit Liu Xiao's mecha. Gudao, horn gun. Liu Xiao, who wore gold-rimmed glasses, had a gentle and refined temperament, but his mecha is rough and hard. The majestic and heavy fuselage is covered with complex root-like patterns, and the sharp and angular lines fully reflect what is sharp and tough. The wild-shaped battle axe is jumping with electric light from time to time. The main and auxiliary 5 engines provide strong power to the mecha, and the latest model of energy furnace is like a powerful heart, supplying kinetic energy to the mecha's movement. This is Liu Xiao's mecha. Advanced body, butcher. When the horn gun of the Gudao came, the butcher just raised his arm, spread his palm, and took the horn gun with his palm. At the same time, the building behind the mecha suddenly shattered, and in the flying glass and various debris, the ape like the legendary mountain-moving giant ape jumped out. It fell on the back of the butcher, and the strong arms hammered hard, trying to smash the mecha. Unexpectedly, the butcher only stretched out one arm, grabbed the ape's head, and suddenly lifted, and threw it to the ground. Then the mecha stepped forward, stepped on the chest of the ape, raised the battle axe slaughter above the head, and chopped it down fiercely. Just as it was about to split the ape's head in half, suddenly, a black shadow inserted into the gap between the two. Ding. The battle axe seemed to hit a piece of armor, and the axe tip rebounded. In the cab, Liu Xiao saw from the panoramic window that a large wing had appeared under the axe tip of the battle axe slaughter at some point. However, every feather on this huge wing seemed to be made of steel, cold and hard. Liu Xiao gasped and controlled Butcher to retreat repeatedly, and then saw the ape crawling out from under the big wing of the upper level behemoth. This behemoth with 2 heads now had one wing that was silver gray, like steel. The other wing was blazing, and every feather turned into a blazing flame. Steel. Flame. The Western Mountains Classic says, 200 miles to the west is Kishan, with many palm trees on top and many bamboo arrows below. On the sunny side, there are many golden jade, and on the shady side, there are many yak, deer, and musk deer. There are many birds, which are like magpies, red and black with 2 heads, 4 legs, and can control fire. At this moment, this bird and beast raised its wings, and suddenly a large piece of restless flames rushed out, surging and exploding. In the cab, Liu Xiao saw outside the panoramic window, and there were flames everywhere. Even with the isolation of the mecha, he still felt a terrifying heat wave. Before he could think about it, the butcher retreated again and again, pulling away. The bird swept out its flaming wings from the flames, sweeping out a series of blazing flames, which hit the mecha. The butcher seemed to be hit by heavy artillery fire, and his body swayed in the constantly exploding flames and kept retreating. The Gudao and the Great Ape also took the opportunity to pounce on Liu Xiao and the mecha butcher. At the same time, the gate of the number 3 warehouse of the base was opened, and a convoy began to evacuate the base along the emergency passage with the protection of several minions. This scene was discovered by the Guangling Armed Corps, but they were now unable to intercept or pursue, and could only report the situation to the Mecha Corps. On the battlefield outside the base, the white dragon raised his foot and kicked away the body of a raccoon, and then heard the notification of the Armed Corps on the communication channel. We found a convoy evacuating from the material warehouse. We have reason to believe that the Mustang base wants to transfer important materials in hope that the Mecha Corps will intercept it. Then the voice of the captain of the 5th Squad, Heodexu, sounded in the communication channel. How to intercept. There are giant beasts and mechas everywhere now. Unless we can fly, it will be too late. Yan Wenbo's voice sounded immediately. Luo Yan, how much fuel do you have left in your injector? Luo Yan glanced at the status bar of the mecha. There is still 28% left. Yan Wenbo said, that's enough. Leave it to us here. You go and intercept the base convoy. Don't let them transfer important materials. Luo Yan nodded in agreement, and just as he was about to take action, he heard Bei shouting, wait a minute. Student Luo has consumed a lot of energy, right? I'll ask Dan Niang to refine a Keohu and Dan for you. This pill can restore a lot of energy, which will be helpful to you. While Bei was talking, a green light flowed in the cab of White Dragon. In that light, Luo Yan saw a figure walking out. She was wearing a long skirt with water sleeves and a slender figure. As soon as it appeared, a faint medicinal fragrance surged in the air. The figure was holding a purple gold gourd. With a pair of slender jade hands, a green pill was poured out from the gourd and placed in Luo Yan's hand. Luo Yan did not look at the pill. He looked up at the figure, but saw a figure like a girl. Her oval face had no facial features because she was covered with a red spell scarf, on which there were densely packed black spells combined into an eyeball pattern. This was the first time Luo Yan saw this weird thing of Bei. He did not expect that the Danyang could provide pills to restore his vitality. Taking off his helmet, Luo Yan took the Keohuandan, and he felt that his vitality was rapidly restored. He whispered to the figure who stepped into the green light, thank you. Chapter 289 Intercept. Bang! A loud noise sounded in the base. People were running on the ground. The airflow from behind suddenly swept them up, and then the whistling smoke engulfed them. When they fell to the ground and looked up, large and small building fragments, vehicle fragments and other debris fell from above like a rainstorm. People's faces turned pale, and they all got up and ran for their lives. A soldier only wished that his parents had not given him 2 more legs. He ran with a gun in his arms, and suddenly a car fell in front of him, crushing several people who were running in front of him to death. He was so scared that he sat on the ground and saw people passing by him. The soldier stretched out his hand and shouted, wanting people to help him, but no one stopped. Suddenly, the sky above his head darkened. The soldier looked up and saw a huge steel foot passing over his head. He could see the complex metal structure under the foot, the pipes spewing hot air, and the bolts as big as wheels. The foot landed heavily in front of him, crushing the car that had just fallen from the sky and the people who were running for their lives. The terrifying airflow was gushing out in front of him. The soldier was too scared to look. He lay on the ground, holding his head with both hands, and prayed to all the gods and Buddhas. With his eyes closed, he heard people screaming, the roar of the giant beast, and the roar of the explosion. All kinds of sounds made him mistakenly think he was in hell. Suddenly, a violent vibration hit, and the soldier was thrown away. After a burst of clouds and mist, he fell into the soft green belt. He opened his eyes bravely, and suddenly a black shadow fell in front of him. It turned out to be the head of a giant beast. This giant beast, which looked like an orangutan, looked at the soldier with golden eyes, and suddenly a battle axe with electric light jumped down, splitting the head of the giant beast in 2. The soldier raised his head, and saw a rough and heavy mecha standing behind him. The mecha drew the battle axe, and a fountain of blood spurted out of the head of the giant beast, and then the blood quickly spread on the ground, and came to the side of the green belt in a blink of an eye. The soldier hurriedly got up, and suddenly heard a clear cry, and then saw a giant bird falling from the sky. The bird had a horn on its head. The horn suddenly lit up with a red light, and then a cone-shaped light wave broke through the air and hit the chest of the mecha. The mecha's shoulders immediately rose, and the next second small missiles were fired one after another, hitting the eagle in the sky, and the constantly blooming fireballs submerged the giant bird. The soldier then hugged his helmet and ran behind the mecha. After a few steps, the soldier heard a roar above his head. He didn't dare to look up, and suddenly his head darkened, and then a scorching air wave blew and lifted him off. The soldier rolled in the airflow, and when he fell back to the ground, he saw a strange bat with 2 heads and 4 legs in the sky, burning with raging flames all over its body, crashing into the mecha and exploding with a brilliant flame. The soldier couldn't move anymore. He was shaking all over, and his pants were gradually soaked. In the cockpit of the mecha butcher, Liu Zhao, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, now had a face full of resentment. The upper-level behemoth is intelligent. This thing didn't run away, but chased me and hit me. Does it think I'm easy to control? Liu Zhao's face was gloomy. He controlled the mecha to run and fight back. Suddenly, he heard a roar in the sky. He looked up at the sky. Above the blue sky, a mecha was spraying blue flames from behind, forming a strong driving force, passing over the base. Liu Zhao's pupils dilated slightly, and he instantly understood that it was a mecha that was going to intercept the base convoy. Can't let it pass. Liu Zhao made a prompt decision, locked the mecha in midair, and threw the battle axe slaughter fiercely. In the cockpit of White Dragon, Liu Yan looked through the panoramic window and suddenly saw a rough-shaped mecha on the ground throwing a battle axe at him. He quickly asked White Dragon to deflect his body, but was still cut by the opponent's battle axe. Fortunately, it was not the mecha itself that was hit, but the mortar. The barrel of the Hyperion mortar was split into 2 pieces, one of which was still hanging on the mecha, and the other fell off and smashed into the base. Liu Yan did not stop for the mecha on the ground, and the White Dragon flew over the base. In a blink of an eye, the convoy that fled the base in the distance could be seen in the panoramic window. The White Dragon roared away, and the convoy also discovered him as a pursuer. While the 2 half-mechas of the henchmen kept moving forward, the upper body of the mecha turned to the rear, set up anti-aircraft cannons, and kept firing. Liu Yan asked the mecha to put up a heavy shield to protect the fuselage and dive down. When it came near the ground, it turned off the jet, and the White Dragon fell to the ground, slid forward in a squatting posture, shoveled mud and rocks, and tore a gully on the ground. While sliding towards the convoy, the longsword Fian swept out and smashed a henchman to pieces. When it stopped, it threw out its longsword and smashed another ghost. Then White Dragon ran, drew out the longsword stuck in the ground, came to the front of the convoy, and stabbed straight into the ground. In the supply truck at the front, the driver saw the longsword of the mecha in front of him falling like a mountain, and was so scared that he quickly braked, then opened the door, and jumped out of the car to escape. The situation of other vehicles was roughly the same. Even the base soldiers in the convoy did not have the courage to fight the mecha. In a blink of an eye, everyone in the convoy ran away. Liu Yan took off his helmet and disconnected the neural connection, but still maintained empathy with the mecha. He took the splitting star, came to the ground, and walked to the front of the cargo truck. While walking, Liu Yan did not forget to use the eye of true suchness to scan, and found a human-shaped grey light in the truck compartment. The grey light had a colorful information line. Interpretation. Lian Wuxian, 42 years old, bodyguard. Shenzang, Nanli Fire, Natural, Kung Fu, Dushan Gong. Realm, Primary Grade Perfection. Combat Skills. 1 stick poking. 2 stick chopping. 3 standing circle dance. After reading this information, Liu Yan narrowed his eyes slightly. Lian Wuxian, Huang Yuanhang's bodyguard. Without stopping, Liu Yan came to the door of the carriage, unsheathed the splitting star and slashed it, opening the door. As soon as it was opened, gunshots suddenly rang out in the cargo compartment, and then bullets stopped in front of Liu Yan. When he opened the door, he had already formed a seal and released the empty wall to prevent this move. At this time, looking calmly, there were many shelves in the carriage, with boxes of various sizes placed on them. In the middle aisle, Lian Wuxian threw away the pistol with an empty magazine and held a platinum long stick. One man guards the pass. Liu Yan glanced at him indifferently. Put down your weapons and surrender. Bullshit. Lian Wuxian grinned. When I was 20 years old, I stabbed a village bully and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. No one wanted to work for me after I came out. I'm so poor that I can barely make ends meet. Even when my mother was sick, I had no money to treat her. In the end, it was Mr. Huang who gave me a bite to eat. From that day on, I decided that whoever touches Mr. Huang would be killed by me. Oh. Luo Yan got in the car, closed the door, and walked forward with his sword. Chapter 290, Unexpected Gains. The story between Lian Wuxian and Huang Yuanhang may be very touching, but it has nothing to do with Luo Yan. Lian Wuxian wants to be loyal, and Luo Yan can't control it. All Luo Yan can do is to send Huang Yuanhang, the loyal minister, to where he should go. Lian Wuxian didn't waste any words and raised his big calloused hand. Boom boom boom. Red and yellow flames jumped up behind him. Southly fire. A total of 5 streams of fire, rising like flags, making Lian Wuxian look extraordinary, like a god descending on earth. Luo Yan was unmoved, and a silver cross appeared in his red eyes. He activated the prophet to predict Lian Wuxian's next move. At the same time, he used the secret method KO and wheel, and most of the Yuan Li that was directly pulled back by Dan Liang's KO Hu and Dan turned into bright yellow flames, soaring fiercely, and transformed into the shadows of mountains and water. Lian Wuxian calculated in his mind, and when Luo Yan entered his attack range, he kicked the platinum long stick on the ground with his big foot. Taking advantage of the moment of physical contact, he poured the Nanli fire into the stick. The fire flag behind Lian Wuxian suddenly lost one side, and the platinum long stick was emitting red flames, and the stick body was red and emitting high heat, but there was no trace of heat in Lian Wuxian's grasp. He shouted. He raised the stick. It was a lightning strike. It was a combat skill, stick poking. This stick was like wind and thunder, poking at Luo Yan's face. Lian Wuxian was sure that, as long as he hit the opponent, including Luo Yan's head, he would explode. However, Luo Yan's body suddenly shook, like a dragonfly flying over the water, without a trace of fireworks, and suddenly moved to the left side of Lian Wuxian's body. Footwork, dragonfly touching the water. Then the sword light surged. Lian Wuxian's pupils dilated. It was too late to pull the stick back to defend. He was also experienced in combat. He simply followed the inertia of the stick's attack, and moved his body forward. He avoided Luo Yan's sword. Lian Wuxian did not dare to be careless. He changed from holding the stick in one hand to holding two. The fire flag behind him disappeared 3 more times. The red flames on the platinum long stick were like blood, rising violently, and suddenly retreated into the stick, without revealing a trace of fire. It was just a platinum stick. The stick body was as red as a torch. When the long stick moved, the moisture in the air was evaporated and turned into wisps of green smoke. Luo Yan moved without warning again, without a trace, and cut into Lian Wuxian's side. The latter shouted, and his hands suddenly moved to the middle of the long stick, and then danced the long stick in a big circle, dancing a red fire wheel. Combat skills, standing circle dance flower. The space around Lian Wuxian, within the range of this fire wheel, was continuously bursting with flames, exploding into a riot of color. It was difficult for Luo Yan to get close to him for a while. Luo Yan narrowed his eyes slightly, suddenly stretched out his hand, and placed it on a wooden box on the shelf, and pushed it towards Lian Wuxian without caring what was inside. The wooden box flew away, and Luo Yan followed closely behind. The skin in the driving suit stood up with dragon scales, and then fell down, covering his whole body. Transformation into a dragon posture. On the other side, Lian Wuxian saw the wooden box flying over, and his wild stick dance slowed down immediately. The red color of one end of the long stick faded, and he gently pushed the wooden box with the end of the stick, and used his clever strength to send the box away. As soon as the box left his sight, Luo Yan rushed over with a sword. Lian Wuxian's eyes were filled with countless red threads. It was too late to dance with the stick at this time. He could only shake his wrist and let the platinum long stick turn around his shoulder. With his other hand on the stick, he swung it violently. The platinum stick with a red tinge chopped a curtain of fire in the air, and it was like a huge flaming flag, chopped towards Luo Yan's head. Combat skills, chopping stick. At this time, Luo Yan was still going, but he had foresight, and slightly turned his body halfway in advance, allowing Lian Wuxian's stick to chop over his nose. Even if he was not hit by the long stick, the amazing anger still made Luo Yan feel a burning pain on his face. It happened in a flash. Luo Yan, who was halfway sideways, seemed to be gliding on the ice, and passed by Lion Wuxian in a blink of an eye. Then he sheathed his outstretched longsword, turned around, and passed by the big man whose neck began to spurt blood. Wait. Lion Wuxian stretched out his hand to catch Luo Yan, but he caught nothing. The lonely flag of fire behind him dissipated, and there was no light in his eyes. His burly figure fell beside the huge hole he had just chopped. Luo Yan went deep into the cargo compartment and casually checked one of the shelves. The electronic screen on the shelf displayed the words medicine raw materials. He opened a box, and there were indeed some raw materials for medicine neatly placed inside. Luo Yan walked along and found that there were really a lot of things in this cargo compartment. In addition to the raw materials for medicine, there were also various giant beast materials, low temperature refrigerated giant beast parasites, and even giant beast cores. In addition, there were a full 100 sets of ghost data processors. With these things, as long as there are materials, 100 more ghost can be made. Although this kind of semi-mecha cannot be compared with conventional mechs, it is far less flexible than Luo Yan's small mecha. But the ghost semi-mecha has the advantage of not needing empathy. Those data processors replace the empathy system. In addition to requiring multiple people to operate, the requirements for drivers are much simpler than those for mechas. Ordinary people can operate it after training, and there is no need to practice visualization, so it is more versatile. It's no wonder that the base had to evacuate urgently. I'm afraid that half of the assets of the Mustang base are in this carriage. Luo Yan walked to the last shelf. The electronic screen of this shelf showed the word miscellaneous. He opened a box at random. Inside was a pair of swords that were more ornamental than practical. He opened 4 or 5 boxes one after another. Some boxes contained finished potions, some contained gorgeous pistols for collection, and one box was even full of gold bars. At this time, the roar of the giant beast was heard outside. Luo Yan quickly activated the Eye of True Suchness to scan in case the giant beast approached without his knowledge. Unexpectedly, as soon as the Eye of True Suchness was activated, a hazy white light flashed in the corner of his eye. Luo Yan was stunned for a moment and looked down the shelf. On a shelf at the bottom, there was a suitcase. The hazy white light came from the box. Luo Yan opened the suitcase and found a mess of things inside. There were mobile phones, keys, and some documents, which looked like some personal belongings. Among these things, Luo Yan found a tin iron wine pot. He carefully opened the wine pot and saw that there was a primordial stone fragment inside. Luo Yan's eyes lit up. This was an unexpected gain. However, he was puzzled. Who would put the primordial stone fragment in the wine pot and throw it on the sundry shelf? If the primordial stone fragment comes into contact with a person who has opened the divine treasure, it will automatically turn into light and escape into the person's body. Unless the divine treasure has transformed and broken through like Luo Yan, it may lose its effect. Then, the person who put the fragment into the wine pot must be an ordinary person. But ordinary people don't know the existence and value of the primordial stone fragment, so how could they collect it so carefully? Unless the other party is entrusted by someone, and that person knows what the primordial stone fragment is, and what it does. Chapter 291, Fragment Fusion. Luo Yan reached out, and held the primordial stone fragment in his hand, but just like before, the diamond-shaped crystal did not react at all. He sighed softly. Could it be that my divine treasure can no longer break through? Or do I need other things to stimulate it before I can continue to break through? Looking at the piece in his hand, Luo Yan certainly would not miss it. Even if he could not use it himself, he could take it to the core or the giant beast strategic house to exchange for contributions. Otherwise, he could give it to Bai Yi. Until now, Luo Yan has not had the opportunity to repay her for saving his life. Thinking of this, Luo Yan took out a palm-sized metal password box from his driving suit, which contained another fragment. He unlocked it with his fingerprint, and the box popped open. Luo Yan put the 2 primordial stone fragments together. When the 2 things were put together, they vibrated at the same time, and then suddenly stuck together like magnets attracting each other. The contact parts immediately penetrated each other like a perfect blend of water and milk. Both fragments emitted a hazy light, and the air was filled with a faint, almost imperceptible fragrance of flowers and plants. The Takai-like pattern on the fragment then turned into light and floated, disintegrating layer by layer, as if it was formed by the superposition of countless layers of graphics. Each layer of graphics contained information that humans could understand invisibly. The amount of information was so amazing that when these layers of graphics further disintegrated, countless symbols were formed that almost filled Luo Yan's vision. Looking at the two fragments in the box again, they have now completely merged into one, turning into a crystal clear, jelly-like object. This thing squirmed and reshaped, and after a moment, it turned into a sphere the size of an eyeball. Then the symbols flying all over the sky, reassembled in the air, forming layers of patterns, and then were printed in the small ball in an orderly manner. Layer after layer, constantly overlapping, finally formed a symbol similar to Oracle Bone script. It seemed to be a text, but Luo Yan didn't recognize it at all. He only knew that this symbol contained Takai and Yin Yang, which was different from the pattern on the Teichu stone fragment before. Now this symbol seemed to have a deeper meaning than that pattern. In other words, after the two Teichu stone fragments merged, they should have formed something of a higher level. Thinking of this, Luo Yan held his breath, stretched out his hand, and gently tapped the sphere in the box. In an instant, the symbol inside the sphere, the thousands of fine lines instantly lit up, and the crystal ball floated into the air, and came to the level of Luo Yan's line of sight. Suddenly, it hit his forehead. Luo Yan instinctively wanted to dodge, but its speed was too fast. Luo Yan had this idea, and it had already been imprinted on Luo Yan's eyebrows. Then the crystal ball melted like ice under the sun, leaving only the mysterious ancient symbol imprinted on Luo Yan's forehead, and then it sank into Luo Yan's skin little by little, and finally disappeared. The next second, a bright light lit up between Luo Yan's eyebrows, and then the light spread, lighting up the capillaries and nerves of Luo Yan's body in turn, forming a mysterious pattern. This process was very fast, almost fleeting. In a blink of an eye, Luo Yan returned to normal, and there was no sign of anything special. However, it was an indisputable fact that the two fragments in the code box disappeared. At this time, Luo Yan heard the sound of a car outside the carriage. Luo Yan put away the code box, closed the suitcase, and came out of the truck. Chariots stopped around, the doors opened, and teams of soldiers got off in an orderly manner, quickly dispersed, and quickly formed a line of defense. Then a group of people came in with big strides. The leader was a square-faced man. A capable young woman next to him took the initiative to introduce him to Luo Yan. "This is the commander-in-chief of the Guangling Armed Corps, Commander Hu Yu." The man named Hu Yu nodded and looked at Luo Yan. "Is there anything missing in there?" Luo Yan replied simply, "No." "That's good," Hu Yu said lightly. "Thank you for your hard work. We will deal with it next. I won't bother the Corps." Luo Yan didn't say anything, and turned to leave. Unexpectedly, the capable woman behind him cleared her throat and said, "Wait a minute." Luo Yan looked back at her. The woman with neat short hair said expressionlessly, "According to convention, you need to be checked. After all, you have just entered an important material truck. Now, please take out the things on your body and cooperate with our work." Luo Yan's eyes suddenly turned cold. His thumb had already landed on the hilt of the splitting star sword, ready to push the sword out of the sheath at any time. "Don't be rude, Xiaolin," Hu Yu spoke at this time. Then he looked at Luo Yan. "Please don't be offended. Xiaolin didn't mean it. It's just my duty. But I believe in you and the Corps. Please do as you please." Luo Yan nodded. He returned to his mecha, and then returned to the battlefield. Seeing the mecha leave, Hu Yu said in a deep voice, "Count the things on the car and compare them with the list of supplies we got from the base to see if the mecha master has embezzled them." The capable woman Xiaolin next to him nodded, took out a tablet, and boarded the truck with a team of soldiers. **** Forbidden Land Number 3, Misty Canyon. Since the heavy rain that day and night, people who entered the Forbidden Land have found that the Forbidden Land seems to be much quieter than usual. On weekdays, even if you are active on the edge of the Forbidden Land, you can hear the roar of giant beasts coming from the depths of the Forbidden Land. However, recently, although similar roars are not extinct, they are much less. Sometimes, only 3 or 2 bee straws are heard in a day. The third area of the Forbidden Land, Medicine Valley. This place, which was once occupied by the Black Tower Company, is now jointly managed by the Hanley Pharmaceutical Company and several other medicinal material companies, and is also open to other companies for mining. You only need to pay the required fees to enter the Medicine Valley to mine raw materials. In this way, the Medicine Valley is much more lively than before. Today, Yang Likai personally inspected the Medicine Valley. Now this Medicine Valley has become the company's biggest cash cow. Even if the Hanley company does not mine medicinal materials, it can make a lot of money just from the dividends every quarter. Standing in the office of the newly built management building, looking through the French windows at the busy scene in Medicine Valley, Yang Lixi sighed. It would be great if classmate Luo was here too. This is the kingdom we built together. He then muttered to himself, no, 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 Yang Lixi, you can't be proud. It's easy to capsize when you are young and successful. You should have a long-term vision and a bigger picture. You are complacent with just a Medicine Valley. How can you be worthy of being classmate Liu's confidant? Let's set a small goal. Our Hanley Pharmaceutical will monopolize the entire Misty Valley's medicinal materials business. He nodded. At this moment, the alarm in the management building suddenly sounded. The shrill alarm made Yang Lixi stunned for a moment, and then the radio sounded. Attention. Attention. Traces of giant beasts appeared in the third warning zone of Medicine Valley. The third warning zone has been breached. The third warning zone has been breached. Yang Lixi's face turned pale immediately. He turned and walked away, taking out his mobile phone as he walked. Quick, prepare the vehicle. I want to leave immediately. After explaining this matter, he put down the phone and smiled bitterly. It would be great if classmate Luo was here. I don't have much confidence in the other guys. However, there is an expulsion system installed around the Medicine Valley, which will release high-frequency sound waves that the giant beasts hate 24 hours a day. I spent a lot of money on this system. Why? It failed. Or is it a mid-level giant beast? Thinking of this, Yang Lixi quickened his pace. If it was a mid-level giant beast, the old model mechs in the Medicine Valley would not be able to defend against it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 292, Changes in the Forbidden Land. In the second security zone, which is only separated from the Medicine Valley by a mountain, several mechs on duty are on high alert. These mechs are provided by the Medicine Valley management. In the communication channel, the Mecha Master's voice rang out. It's time to start gambling, brothers. Guess what kind of giant beast is coming? I bet on Lily 1000 work points. Fool, I haven't seen even a Lily in the forbidden area recently. How could it be a Lily? I bet on C. 2000 work points. 2000 work points. Leo Zhang, have you made a fortune recently? So much money. Lend me some. I'll pay you back after the food is distributed in a few days. Get lost. Everyone knows that you have thrown all your money on that little Medi in the base. Wake up, brother. People talk to you about money. You talk about your heart. In the end you will only get nothing. As you talked, someone said in a deep voice, be quiet. The giant beast is coming. Suddenly, there was an icy breath coming from the front, and suddenly, the temperature around dropped sharply, and hail fell from the sky. The hail hit the mecha, making a series of ping-pong-pong sounds. The indescribable cold swept over and spread wildly, and a thin layer of frost quickly formed on the ground. Then, the mecha operators in the cab saw through the panoramic windows that a huge shadow suddenly fell from the sky and landed in a forest, crushing all the trees. Several mechas shook for a while, and then the mecha operators saw that it was a strange snake with a toad head. This strange snake was nearly 1,000 meters long, with flesh lumps like toads all over its body, and even its head was a toad. It was grey all over, exuding the breath of death and cold. Damn, I won the prize. This thing is White Rain, isn't it in the danger zone? How did it run to the safe zone? I can't beat it. I can't beat it at all. Run. There was a burst of ghosts and wolves howling in the communication channel. These mecha operators were confused and lost their fighting spirit before they even started fighting. Zui Pavilion miscellaneous notes records. Toads are yin species, and the accumulation of yin energy sometimes causes disasters. The natives call it white rain. Although the white rain with a frog head and a snake body in front of us is different from the records, it looks similar and its abilities are also related to coldness and frost. As soon as it appeared, it puffed up its cheeks and suddenly sprayed out a white mist, sweeping over an old-fashioned mecha with mottled marks. In a blink of an eye, the mecha froze, the engine turned off, and a thin layer of frost froze on the energy furnace. The mecha master inside was so cold that his teeth were trembling. In just a few seconds, his blood coagulated, and he was frozen to death. White Rain swam away with a cry, and with a swing of its long tail, it swept the frozen mecha away. The other mechas immediately scattered like birds and beasts, and did not dare to fight this giant beast. White Rain was no longer hindered, and immediately swam into the medicine valley, swallowing the raw materials of the medicine and the workers who could not escape. Several cars drove out of the forbidden area in a hurry. In one of the cars, Yang Lekei looked at the report of Medicine Valley and closed his eyes. It's over. It's over. All my hard work is gone. At this time, the mobile phone received a video. In the video, the strange snake with a frog head and a snake body covered with flesh bumps suddenly stopped after a sweep. It raised its frog head, made a quack sound, and looked outside the Medicine Valley, looking towards the depths of the forbidden area. After a while, the strange snake suddenly turned around and swam out of the valley. Not long after, it completely disappeared in the Medicine Valley. The camera continued to track, and it can be seen that the strange snake kept swimming all the way to the depths of the forbidden area and finally disappeared in a thick fog. The drone stopped tracking and filming. Seeing this, Yang Lixi came back to life. Ha, it's gone. The beast is gone. God is still very caring for me. Although I lost a little, it's better than the whole Medicine Valley being damaged by that thing. Yang Lixi looked out the window again, looking at the thick fog in the distance. But, the behavior of that thing looks like it was summoned by something. Could it be the owner of the forbidden area? That overlord level beast summoned it? Yang Lixi shook his head. He couldn't think of an answer. At this time, the driver asked, "Sir, are we going back?" "What for? What if that monster snake comes back again?" "Let's leave here first." Yang Lixi decided to be cautious. After all, if the Medicine Valley is gone, he can still develop something else. But if he loses his life, there will be no hope. In the forbidden area, Bayu has already swam into the thick fog. Inside the thick fog is the dangerous area of the forbidden area. Wherever the monster snake passes, the ground freezes, and it slowly turns into water after it leaves for a long time. Bayu keeps going deeper. Not long after, several figures appeared in the thick fog. They were all giant beasts. There were 4 in total, each of which exuded a heavy pressure, but one of them looked like a crocodile, but was rotten in many places, and was obviously weaker than the others. Therefore, it lagged behind the other beasts a little bit, and shook its head from time to time, looking at the other 3 beasts next to it vigilantly. At this time, a cold wind carrying ice and snow came from behind. The wind and snow washed the rotten crocodile, and it immediately roared, and dark green flames spurted out from its rotten wounds. They offset the ice and snow to a certain extent, but the extent was limited. After barely resisting for a while, the rotten crocodile was completely frozen from its tail to its head. Bayu then swam out of the thick fog insidiously, and then twitched its tail to sweep away the frozen rotten crocodile. The rotten crocodile turned a few times, and then the ice on its body cracked, and green fire spurted out, exploding the ice. Although it was out of trouble, it did not dare to retaliate against Bayu. It just roared a few times in protest at the frog-headed monster snake, then turned around and crawled away. After a while, a deep breath appeared in the thick fog. Whether it was the insidious Bayu or the other 3 giant beasts, they all lay dormant, and lay on the ground in front of this breath. At this time, a tail emerged from the thick fog. This tail, which looked like a cat's tail, gently touched Bayu's body. Bayu trembled all over, and then the lumps of flesh on his body all swelled, and emitted a strange grey-white light from the inside. The monster snake curled up, rolled into a ball, and kept squirming. In this process, the lumps of flesh on its body kept breaking and were rubbed off by the monster snake itself, revealing a new body. The cat's tail that stretched out from the thick fog lightly touched the other 3 giant beasts, and then the remaining giant beasts also trembled all over like Bayou, and their bodies underwent strange changes. After enlightening a few giant beasts, the thing in the thick fog retracted its tail. A figure in the fog lay on the ground, with its head buried between its 2 front legs, and its 3 tails dancing irregularly. The thing in the fog was sleeping soundly. The 4 giant beasts around it continued to change, and their auras were rising little by little. Chapter 293 Mutual Exploitation. In the wilderness, the night was as dark as ink, with thick clouds covering the earth and hiding the stars and the moon. A skinny wolf was chasing a rabbit. When the rabbit went into a hole, it was destined to be hungry tonight. The skinny wolf stopped, whimpered a few times, and then saw a few lights in the distance. Those lights were like lonely ghosts, exuding a sense of loneliness. Several figures were reflected in the firelight, and the skinny wolf kept gurgling in his mouth, but in the end it did not go to the firelight. It was able to survive until now, because it was alert enough. It could smell that those figures exuded a sense of danger. The skinny wolf tucked its tail between its legs and ran away. What a clever beast. The person who spoke was about 37 or 38 years old, with thick eyebrows and big eyes, biting a grass core in his mouth, and grinning. Not far from him, Liu Zhao, who was wearing gold-rimmed glasses, and had a delicate appearance like a college student, smiled and said, "These days, those who are not smart enough are all dead." Another man with yellow teeth said, "I suspect you are talking about Xiao Teng, but I have no evidence." Liu Zhao looked at him and said, "Captain I won't make fun of a dead person. Besides, Captain Xiao's death was not because he was not smart enough, but because he was unlucky and ran into a tough guy." The other 2 were the captains of the 2nd and 5th teams of the Zuanming division. Zheng Huan with thick eyebrows and big eyes. He Dong with yellow teeth. He Dong opened a pack of cigarettes, took out a cigarette and bit it to his lip, then took a lighter to light it and said, "This time, man proposes, God disposes." The situation was originally good, but we didn't expect that the Yanfu space would suddenly open, and Captain Liu was entangled by a high-level behemoth. As a result, not only the base could not be taken back, but even the material convoy was seized by Guangling City. "Captain Liu, what are your plans next?" Liu Zhao glanced at the 2 captains indifferently. "Don't worry, I will not give you a penny less. No need to test me. My luck was a little bad today, but it's just a surface base. I can afford to lose. Why don't you 2 worry more about yourselves?" Zheng Huan smiled. "What do we have to worry about?" Liu Zhao sighed. "To be precise, we all have to worry about ourselves." Zheng Huan and Hidong exchanged glances, both showing puzzled expressions. Liu Zhao looked at them and said, "None of us will make much money on this trip. Even you will suffer some losses. Not to mention Xiao Teng. He risked his life here. His team is ruined. Our situation is better, but we have also suffered losses. Our strength is definitely not as good as before. If you were Yuqiu, what would you do?" Zheng Huan sighed. "Yes, that woman Yuqiu is ruthless and has a vicious eye. Now several of our teams have suffered losses. If she doesn't take the opportunity to do something, the sun will definitely rise from the west tomorrow." Hidong snorted and said, "Zuhan, the head of our Zuanming department, has not been heard from since the giant beast disaster. That woman Yuqiu said that the head was in seclusion to practice. I don't know if it's true or not, but one thing is certain, after the disaster, the power of Team 1 expanded rapidly. That woman Yuqiu is more likely to replace Headmaster Zhu. Now our strength has been damaged again." Liu Zhao smiled and said, "That's it, to captains. Now we will prosper together and suffer together if we separate. What do you 2 think?" Zheng Huan spit out the grass core in his mouth. "Captain Liu means that we should unite and fight against Team 1. Hidong blew out a puff of smoke. "If we want to join forces, why fight? Wouldn't it be better to just kill that bitch Yuqiu?" Liu Zhao looked at Hidong. "I do mean that. But this matter needs long-term consideration, and compared to dealing with Team 1, the other team is easier to deal with at the moment. It's a pity that I'm busy with chores and can't get away otherwise. Xing Huan added some firewood. Captain Liu, are you talking about Team 7? He Dong nodded. The new captain of Team 7, Kai Jiuying, is said to be recommended by Yuqi Yushu and has now gone to Guangling City for development. Liu Zio nodded. That's right. If Team 7 can gain a foothold in Guangling, then by then, it means that Yuqi Yushu's power will be even greater. Xing Huan slapped his thigh. I understand, we can't touch Yuqi Yushu casually, but we can deal with Team 7 first. Destroying Team 7 is like cutting off Yuqi Yushu's arm. It will be much easier to deal with Team 1 in the future. Liu Zio laughed and said, that's the truth. Xing Huan and Hidong exchanged glances and stood up. The former said, okay, let us two brothers think of a solution for this matter. Captain Liu, you can do your thing. Liu Zio also stood up and said, if there is anything I can do for you, please feel free to tell me. The three of them dispersed. Xing Huan and Hidong were far away from the bonfire. Hidong threw the cigarette butt on the ground and stepped on it, revealing his yellow teeth and smiled. The guy surnamed Liu has a good plan. He wants us to work for him without paying a penny. Xing Huan smiled and said, we can use each other. Our two teams are indeed not as strong as his Team 3, let alone Team 1. If we don't join forces with Team 3, we might really be eaten by that woman Yuqi Yushu. Hidong twisted his neck. Okay, since we are here, let's go to Guangling to have a look. If the Team 7 is easy to control, we can take them down along the way. If it's too difficult, forget it. There's no need to risk our lives for the guy surnamed Liu. Xing Huan laughed. Of course. On the other side, after Xing Huan and the other two left, Liu Zio also left and came to the city not far from the Mustang base. Walking into a quiet ready-made clothing store, Liu Zio whistled. After kicking away a few models blocking the way, immediately, a figure turned out from the darkness, looked at Liu Zio coldly, and then placed a suitcase on the broken counter. This is what you want. Liu Zio glanced at the suitcase, nodded, took out an envelope, and placed it on the suitcase. The information you want. The man took the envelope away like lightning, and retreated into the darkness. Liu Zio picked up the suitcase and left quickly. After returning to the wilderness gym, he opened the suitcase, and took out the mobile phone, keys and other items inside. Suddenly, Liu Zio turned the entire suitcase over, and let the things inside fall in front of him. But there was nothing he wanted. Gone. Did they find the fragment hidden in the wine jug? Impossible. That thing is not in the inventory. Some time ago, a man named Huang got lucky and picked up that fragment from somewhere. He thought it was just an ordinary crystal, so I bought the fragment together with other crystals he dug out from the forbidden area as a collection. Huang Yuanhang can't see through it. I also had someone hide the fragment in my personal glove box for me to pick up. With this fragment, my divine treasure can be transformed, and I will have more confidence in dealing with Yuqi Yushu. But now Liu Zio's eyes flashed gloomy. Who on earth touched my fragment? Chapter 294. Don't be ashamed to ask questions. In the lounge of the mecha carrier, Liu Yan locked the room and was practicing. As the skill viewing the mountains and seas was running, the Yuan force in the space was continuously injected into the body. Under the effect of the spark agent, some impurities were burned, making the total amount of Yuan force less, but the quality was raised a little. At this time, the Yuan force in Liu Yan's body overflowed from the acupoints and merged with the external Yuan force, just like drops of water gathered into water lines. The water lines gathered into water streams, flowing along the meridians and blood vessels in his body, and trying to extend to the position of Danshan under the abdomen. When Liu Yan was practicing, his Yuan Shen Phantom was also absorbing the Yuan force of heaven and earth. The Yuan force turned into water drops and was sucked in by the green dragon. Every time it inhaled a breath of water, the two convex objects on the forehead of the green dragon would bulge slightly, as if there were horns growing inside. At the same time, the Yuan Shen Phantom would transfer part of the power into Liu Yan's body to accelerate his practice. Liu Yan would also naturally emit a breath of Yuan Li from his pores, which was absorbed by the Yuan Shen Phantom, making this figure clearer. The two complemented each other and were inseparable. A few hours later, Liu Yan exhaled a long breath and opened his eyes. His red eyes glowed red, as if there was a burning flame. The visualization technique is about to break through. He moved his body, felt the state of the energy in his body, and concluded, in another month, I can break through. This speed is not slow. Luo Yan looked into the mirror, and looked into his own eyes. However, Shenzhang has not broken through and promoted. It has been several days. It seems to take longer this time. I don't know what the Shenzhang is called after the promotion. The encyclopedia only records our true suchness. Well, I can ask Lin Wei for advice when I go back and see if she knows about the fusion of primordial stone fragments. At this time, the room broadcast sounded, we have arrived at the Great Lake area and are about to enter the underground city. Luo Yan opened the room and came to the front of the car. Looking out of the window, he could already see the shimmering lake above Guangling City. The incident of Mustang Base was over. That day, Luo Yan returned to the battlefield. Those people in the Zuanming division probably knew that there was no hope of retaking the base. Seeing that the material convoy was intercepted, they decisively left the battlefield before the situation got worse. Even so, the 4 teams of Zuanming still left 5 mechs on the battlefield. This was a heavy loss for each team. The worst was Team 5. They lost 2 mechs and the captain Jiuying. After the 4 teams of Zuanming withdrew, Guangling gathered troops to clean up the giant beasts. After killing a few lower level ones, the other giant beasts left. Now, the Mustang base has been taken over by Guangling's ground armed corps. Unfortunately, the base was severely damaged by the giant beasts and the losses were far beyond expectations. If the supply convoy had not been intercepted, the attack on the base would have been more trouble than it was worth. When entering the underground city passage, Luo Yan heard the sound of a car behind him. Looking back, a convoy drove by and passed by their core convoy. Among them were 2 mecha carriers with the 4 big words Xiangang Dragon Riders on the carriages. Luo Yan's pupils dilated slightly. Xiangang Dragon Riders? Why are they here? As the convoy left, Yan Wenbo's voice rang out on the communicator. Did you see that? Am I seeing things? That was the transport vehicle of the Xiangang Dragon Riders. What are they doing in Guangling City? No one could answer this question. After returning to the core headquarters, the 2 teams came to the office of the squad leader of the 3rd squad, Zhongzhang. This office was still filled with many fitness equipment. The squad leader was not working out, but was reading the report carefully, which was very rare. Seeing the 2 teams coming, Zhongzhang put down the report, stood up and nodded, saying, you're back. I already know what happened at the base. Enemy soldier support. The giant beast is coming. You've worked hard. Go back and rest first. The corps will not forget your efforts. Zhongzhang put his legs together, straightened his back, and saluted the personnel of the 2 teams. Luo Yan and others immediately returned the salute. The next day, Basin Academy. After class, Luo Yan walked to Lin Wei's desk. Lin Wei, with her black hair cascading down her back like a waterfall, raised her head and looked at Luo Yan with cold eyes that were somewhat puzzled. Luo Yan said simply, can I ask you some questions? Lin Wei blinked, stood up, and replied simply, let's go to the library. Okay. The 2 walked out of the classroom together. The classroom was quiet for a while. One after another, they watched the 2 leave. When they were no longer visible, a voice was heard in the classroom. Who will slap me? Goddess Lin went to the library with Luo Yan. Slap? I was just kidding. You really slapped me. But this is really weird. Is classmate Lin so easy to make an appointment with? Classmate Luo left as soon as she made an appointment. If I had known, I would have asked her some questions. There was a lot of discussion in the classroom. Beiyi, who didn't wear a double ponytail today, but wore a rabbit hat, looked at the door. Then, without attracting any attention, the figure disappeared in the classroom. She let Wood cover herself, hiding her figure, and came to the library. Retracting weird behind a bookshelf. Bei casually took a book from the bookshelf, opened it, and covered half of her face, leaving only her eyes exposed. Gently, she tiptoed to the reading area, and saw Luo Yan and Lin Wei sitting face to face. The 2 seemed to be talking about something, but unfortunately they were a little far away, and Bei didn't hear a word. Damn, too far away. I can't hear what they are saying. Bei pouted and pulled the rabbit ears on his hat. That's it. What are they talking about? From the lip reading, Luo was asking Lin Wei some questions about the primordial stone fragment. Suddenly, a voice came from above her head. Bei raised her head, and above her head, Li Boheng smiled awkwardly. Then a big hand pressed on Li Boheng's head, and then Zheng Shan's big head popped out. What a coincidence. Bei, you are also in the library, Zheng Shan said in a low voice. Bei's face suddenly turned red, and he said in panic, I was reading a book. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I just happened to pass by. Zheng Shan laughed softly. We are too, right Laoli? Also, classmate Bei, you hold your book upside down. Bei screamed, attracting the attention of Luo Yan and Lin Wei. But when they looked over, Bei and the other two had already run away. Retracting his gaze, Luo Yan said in a deep voice, so, you don't know whether the primordial stone fragment can be upgraded? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.